Okay, here we are. This is the second episode, if I'm counting correctly, of Tangent Town, a podcast about many things where we have a subject ostensibly, but then we go on tangents if we feel like it. Today, my guest is my old friend, John Martone, and as I always say in these situations, old friend means he's been my friend a long time. It doesn't mean he's old. He's somehow managed to remain young despite the length of our friendship.
Right, right.
I'm not a scientist. It
As,
doesn't make
as
sense
old
for me.
friends do.
What's that?
As old friends do.
Yeah, it's somehow mystifying. But we are going to talk about something that I've wanted to write about for a long time, and I have every time I've started to write about it, I've gotten panicky, thinking that I'm not that I need to write more. But like I just the job, the idea of writing about it sprawled out of control, and I thought maybe it would be better to just chat with somebody about it. So what we're going to be talking about is Raymond Carver and his legendary slash notorious editor, Gordon Lish, who was famous for editing Carver's stuff so severely that if you compare the two versions, it's kind of it's not kind of it's insane how much he cut out of some of the stories. And it's a very long story, which has been litigated many times in the public. I'm going to give sort of an overview about it. Um, the overview is that Carver had been writing stories for a while, and Gordon Lish met him, and they got to know each other, and Lish became interested. I think I'm getting all this wrong. People can correct me if they need to, but these are the basic facts. Lish became interested in publishing him. He got one of Carver's stories into, I think, into Esquire, where Lish was an editor, and maybe he's the fiction editor at the time. And then he started the process of editing Carver's work. There's a lot of details, or there are a lot of details. I'm not going to get into chapter and verse on all of it, but it turns out, in a lot of cases, a story would get published in a magazine, and then with Lish having either not edited it or having only minimally edited, and it would get published, and then later he would edit it more when it became clear that it was going to be in a book. In other words, his editing ideas about these Carver stories evolved over time. Is the point? He did he some, in some cases he took more than one crack at them, and they were published and then got edited again. So in other words, there are multiple. It's very confusing. I was reading about it, and it's hard to keep it all straight. So what we're going to confine our remarks mostly to this one story, which is called "Why Don't You Dance." This, by the way, this information I'm looking at now is from Beginners, which was the volume where they issued all of the original versions, and there is a long section where the authors give tons of details about the whole behind the scenes communication that was going on, the different ways stories got issued and reissued and put out in a magazine, and then changed and then put out in a book. In some cases, they were in more than one magazine. It's really very complicated. But let's see. Okay, here we go. Why Don't You Dance? In the book Beginners, it's an 8-page manuscript that Lish cut by 9%, according to this, for the book "What We Talk About When We Talk About Love," the famous book, which in the early versions, the compilation of that book is called Beginners, and that story is called Beginners. It's confusing already. Like we haven't even gotten into the story yet, and it's already confusing. There's a lot here. So I'm reading that. Why Don't You Dance? Previous publication, before it came out in that book, it was in Quarterly West, which I believe was a magazine that Lish edited. But it was also, according to this, in the Paris Review. And then the version in the Paris Review was the product of Lish's first editing of the story. It says he submitted a story entitled "Why Don't You Dance" to Esquire. Lish edited it and changed the title to "I'm Going to Sit Down," but then it didn't appear in the magazine. So that title never got
Huh.
used. It was, the point is, it's like many twists and turns. As published, here's the interesting part. As published in Quarterly West, the story included many, but not all, of Lish's suggested changes, and is nearly identical to the text in Beginners. So what this means is the so-called Carver version that you're going to be handling today, and I'm going to be looking at. I mean, we're both going to be talking about it, but you'll be focusing on the Carver version. That's even a little misleading because Lish was slightly involved even with that version, apparently.
Oh,
This won't
okay.
concern us because we don't know any of the details of that. But I'm just pointing out that he had already had a crack on at it, and it came out in a magazine,
Huh.
and that form was pretty much the same as what you see in beginners now, apparently.
Because
So
then the second form is dramatically different in my.
second form is dramatically different. So before we, so this just raises even another. I went looking for information because I had a lot of questions. Now I have more questions because the
Mm,
question that probably only Lish could answer is at what point did you start deciding that the story had to be dramatically changed? Because apparently the original edit that Carver was cool with, I guess, wasn't that dramatic because he didn't he let it go out and he didn't question it.
hmm,
So his version is in fact somewhat edited by Lish.
I
So
see.
we don't know exactly what the original was. I like to just give Carver credit and figure it didn't need it wasn't edited that much to get it in that form. That's my guess. That what you see is what it mostly was at that point. I'm guessing here. Okay. Anything else about that? Okay. I will only point this out that when I we talked about this earlier, and I told you that this story was Lish only cut 9%, and as we'll see when we talk about it, 9% might not sound like a lot, but he cut very many different things, and some of them were lengthy. I think part of the reason it's only 9% and not more is because in some cases Lish wrote new things and added them in, so that probably changed the percentage of how much he cut out. I'm guessing it probably altered
Yeah,
nine
altered is
percent.
with my when I'm reading both the stories, I do see where he cut stuff, but for the main difference for me, the main value added, I suppose, of the if you're Lish is the edits is what he changed.
Yeah, he definitely he
Opposed to
didn't just
cutting.
cut. In some
Right.
cases he cut, but in other
Some cases
cases
he
he
cut.
actually changed. And in the most, we'll talk about those examples, and people will have a chance to hear them and think, was this an edit, or was it a rewrite, or was it a new thing from scratch? It's debatable because it's sometimes pretty different. Now
It's
here's an interesting,
pretty different.
pretty different. Now, here's an interesting thing. I only have a limited amount of information on what Carver had to say about all this, but I've looked at again, these are all in that book Beginners. You can read all this. I've looked at some letters that Carver wrote to Lish where he was saying, "Listen, you can't put the book out that way." And he goes into great detail about the things he wasn't okay with. He does say, it's important to mention this. Carver did say that a lot of the edits he thought were really great. So he wasn't completely against
Uh-huh.
all of it. He just there were three, some, depending on how you look at it, there were three stories where they absolutely profoundly disagreed. And then there are a couple more where he maybe had some smaller, it's kind of debatable. I looked at all of it. Essentially there were three that were a big deal.
But then in the case of ones that he strongly disagreed, was his hands tied? Did he say, would he, was he not able to go, don't release this?
Well, that's the question, and I can answer it only with what I read, which was that by the time it's this is definitely an over. Like, I'm not trying to. This is not a historical record where I'm crossing every T and dotting every I. People that want to know deeply about it are encouraged to buy the book and read this for themselves. I'm just giving a few highlights of it. But what they said in the book was that by the time Carver became really concerned, it was already too late because things had moved along. And the thing is, when I've never had a book published, but my understanding is things get set in stone many months before it's actually in a physical book. Like you can't just keep, like, you don't have
Yeah, I
endless
can see that.
opportunities to change it. At
Right,
least
right.
back then. Maybe today it's all on computer and perhaps it's become easier to change at the last minute. I don't know, but
Also, I can see where, certain things would be, cloudy. and they could say, "Oh, it's out the door already."
Well,
So,
see, that's the other thing,
you
is
know,
that I'll read what it says, because when you read what Lish said, and I'm a Lish fan, and but I'm not afraid to call a spade a spade. I think this line suggests that Lish was at least a little bit disingenuous
yeah.
with, but you can judge when you hear this. And Lish is still alive, so I doubt he'll ever see this, but he's certainly welcome. I mean, I would be very happy to hear from him and have him tell me that I got some things wrong. That would be fascinating. So,
I'm
because
sure
all
you'll
I care about is fun,
appreciate that.
is this. I don't care about my take on it so much as I'm just interested in the whole thing. It's fascinating. So let me find this thing where Lish. I mean, Carver wrote him these letters, and we apparently at one point they had a phone call, and that's not historically documented in any way besides the fact that we know they talked on the phone. And it appears from reading between the lines, you basically get one letter from Carver where he's completely freaking out, and he is essentially saying, "You're going to destroy my life if you do." Like, he's really hyperbolic about it, because in his defense, and this is arguably either the main reason or one of the main reasons why there was a miscommunication between them, because Carver was in the process of sobering up after having been a functioning serious alcoholic for many years, and some of the fiction, much of the fiction, reflects that. And there was one particular story where Carver wrote this story as he was starting to come out of his addiction, and the story kind of helped him deal with it. And so it's a story that's quite long. And Lish, let me see. I don't want to give the wrong number here. I wrote down. Okay, here it is. There's a story called Mr. Coffee and Mr. Fix-It that at one point maybe we will talk about. Not tonight. But he didn't want that story to even be included in the book at all, because he was so aghast at how much Lish cut out of it.
Mhm.
His attitude was, let's just not even put that one in there. I don't like your edit. It's really important to me psychologically to have that story exist the way I wrote it, and I would rather not publish it than have it come out the way you edited it. Which, in my view, is a pretty reasonable and perhaps even enlightened way of looking at it.
If you're
But
an artist, I can
Lish
see.
felt otherwise, and I'm going to tell you what Lish had to say, which I think probably a lot of people will roll their eyes when they hear this. Okay. Oh, here's another thing. This is interesting. I have a ton of this all in a pile, so I'm not reading this in any coherent way. Okay. It says his fear, meaning Carver's fear, his fear was that the pared down stories would make his writing seem disjointed. I'm mortally afraid of taking out too much from the stories or making them too thin, not enough connecting tissue to them. Now, when we get into the actual edits, we'll find that there are things where Carver had given more information and details and Lish just cut it out, figuring that the reader would get it. Or,
Or
go
that it
ahead.
was unnecessary,
Or
or
it was
that, or
unnecessary. Yeah,
distracting in a way. But that's really
distracting. Yeah.
interesting to hear Carver say something like, connecting tissue,
Yeah,
where specifically some of the things that he took out were to me distracting.
Yeah, me too. But of course, it's we're a little bit prejudiced because we read the Lish version first, and it was the famous. I mean, I read it years ago. I didn't have any idea that Lish
Yeah,
existed when I first read it. And one of the reasons I picked this story was because this one came right back to me after not having read Carver for decades. I looked at this one and thought, oh, I remember that one, because it's a striking idea for a story, as we'll see when we get into it.
it is.
Okay, but so the point is, Carver did have that one concern where he felt that too much stuff taken out, people might get confused, or it might seem odd that there was so much missing. And I think what it comes down to is that it's hard to be objective if you've written something.
Yeah,
Someone else takes a bunch out of it. You're gonna miss all that stuff, but it turns out for the reader doesn't know that was there.
the reader doesn't know.
The reader doesn't know, and as we will say when we talk about how we react to it, you've already said you like it with the pared down
Well, anyway,
stuff.
yes, I,
Yeah, we'll get into more details later. Okay,
you know,
so let me wrap it up with the stuff of what Carver and Lish said in their exchanges. he's okay. So that's one thing. That's a less dramatic thing. That's just sort of a that's a general objection that he had, which is not super dramatic, but he gets more dramatic about it. He says he asks. I mean, he started by just wanting Lish to like, stop the book and take that one story out and restore. At first his letter was very very much dramatic and extreme, you could say, and he's apologetic the whole time, saying, "Listen, I'm not. It's not that I don't love you and what you're doing. I know you have my best interest at heart, but I just can't take it. These stories are not like they don't represent me." Or he said a
Mhm.
lot of things, but that was the gist of it. And so after the first letter like that, I think I'm getting the chronology right. What they think is that they then at some point they spoke on the phone and Lish basically said, everything's fine, relax. You're not going to regret this. I think
Uh,
that's what happened. There's no record of Lish saying that, but that's what I would suspect. He probably said something like that. But here's what he said more publicly. This is where it gets a little harsh. Good. Carver's okay in the second letter he sent, where he calmed down a little bit, and he basically said, "Look, it's all basically really great." And he even interestingly praised one moment where it was clear that Lish had added something, and Carver appears to be saying he liked that. He
uh,
doesn't seem to object uh, across the board to the idea of Lish changing things based on that one moment. I mean, maybe I'm assuming too much, but I mean, he basically said, "Oh, that thing about the ashtray, that was really great." Like that makes it sound. I didn't actually. That was from a different story. I didn't go
uh,
back and check, but my impression was he was essentially saying, "Hey, if you add something and I like it, it's fine." He didn't seem to object generally to that. I just think he thought that the stories had been changed. It wasn't so much that he didn't trust Lish's ideas, as that he just felt like there wasn't enough of Carver left. I think, which is not exactly the same thing. He's not saying, Lish, your additions are bad. He didn't say that. He just said the story was the way I wanted it, and now it's missing stuff that I like. Okay, so here's what Lish said in the second letter, where he calmed down a little bit and he said, "Listen, I'm fine with most of it. Just a few things. I absolutely insist and demand that you drop that story from the book. The one we talked about a minute ago, where the one
uh,
about sobering up and everything." He stuck to his guns on that, but the rest of it, he said, "But as to the rest of it, I trust you. If you absolutely think you're right and you think I'm my own worst enemy here, I'm okay with it." Look, he basically gave him permission to retain the edits. He just said, "All I'm asking is that you take a look at all of my suggestions and just give them a chance and make sure that like that you hear me out." With the exception of that one story, which he was demanding that he get rid of. That's the point. He was more or less okay with the rest of it, but he really didn't want that story in there. And it says his only firm directive was that Mr. Coffee and Mr. Fix It, which was Lish's name, very different from the original title,
uh,
should not be included in the book. How did Lish respond to Carver's unease about the editing of what we talk about when we talk about love, which was the book? It says in August 1998, he told the New York Times magazine, "My sense of it," this is Lish talking, "my sense of it was that there was a letter and that I just went ahead." Now, okay, let me say that again.
all right.
He's being asked, didn't Carver send you a letter saying he wasn't okay with this and that and the other? Lish's response was, "My sense of it was that there was a letter and that I just went ahead." So it's important to point out this is a man who wrote a textbook about grammar. He's not a clumsy,
Right.
inarticulate speaker. He said that knowing full well that it was vague and
Oh yeah.
he's definitely trying to not to be. I think it's disingenuous, is what I'm saying.
I see.
It's
You're right.
just,
Right.
it's
Or
just.
maybe he's just saying, "Oh yeah," in a way. It sounds like he's saying yes, as I recall. I mean, as
It
I
sounds like his
recall,
attitude
I
was, "It's
got a letter
1998
and
now. I
then
don't
I
need to.
ignored it.
I don't want to talk about it anymore." I think that's what he was really saying. Was,
Yeah, I guess
I mean,
so.
I think the world, everybody loved the book. Why are we even discussing this? I think that's what he was
Well,
probably thinking. But of course, we don't know. Again, unless he unless he contacts me and demands that he get
Right.
equal time, which I doubt will happen. He's pretty old at this point. There was another story that's a pretty famous one, which was another one of the ones he objected to in the letter, not as strenuously, but it was one where he sort of like raised objections to the edit because Lish cut that story, which was called A Small Good Thing, eventually, and eventually
Uh-huh.
became retitled as The Bath.
Uh,
If you remember, do you remember the movie Shortcuts? Did you ever see that?
yeah, and 1,000 years ago.
Okay. Well, there was a scene. There was a part of the movie where Lyle Lovett played this baker. Do you vaguely
Yeah,
recall? Well, okay, that's the story in question. That's
I
the
see.
one called
Okay.
The Bath. And here's how much Carver, or here's how much Lish rather cut out of it. 78%.
Wow.
Think about that. Like 9%
Wow.
is dramatic, as we'll see. Even 9%, but 78. It's no wonder he freaked out. I mean, I you
Right.
can understand why you would freak out. If somebody
Right.
did that to me, like if I turned in something and they cut out that much, I would be livid,
Well, it
probably.
wouldn't even be. I mean, how could it be the same story? But interestingly, the story that we're looking at tonight, again, you know, it's not what he cut out. It's what he changed.
Yeah, I do agree with
You know,
that. The cutting is
and
fine, but
restructured.
what it comes down to is this was not one of the more verbose stories because
I
even
guess
even
not.
Carver's version is not super long, but some of them are very long, and we think of Carver's work as short. And the reason we think that way is because Lish made it so. It wasn't always short, in fact. And like I said, the
Uh-huh.
78%, that's a lot. Like that's a long story if there's a story left over after cutting 78% of it out.
Oh, true. Yeah, yeah. You think of it. I'm focused on this story tonight,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
short
Which is
even in the
different, a very
beginning.
different situation.
Uh-huh. So 78% of this story would be one paragraph. I mean,
Yeah.
there'd be one paragraph left. There'd
Right,
be.
right, exactly. There would be, yeah, because it's pretty short. Even the unedited is not that long.
Right.
And Yeah, so we're just about to. Let me just make this last point, and then we can jump into the stories. Uh, on Why Don't You Dance? This was not on purpose. I picked that story just because I remembered it from reading it a long time ago, and I thought, and I was excited to use that story. But I found out in this research that Why Don't You Dance was one of the ones that Carver didn't have a problem with yet, which is,
Oh,
I think, significant. In other words, we're going to talk about all
huh.
these things, but it's important to remember Carver did not freak out about this edit at all, according to what I've read. He was probably because he was way more freaked out about those other ones.
Maybe he was worn out.
And yeah, right. Maybe he felt maybe it was a pick your battles situation. Like
Yeah,
I
maybe.
can't complain about every single edit,
Right, right.
but my guess is he actually was fine with this edit because he said, what does he say?
Well,
He's
that's
very
interesting.
he's hugely complimentary when he's not questioning the things. He said, let's see, uh,
That's interesting because really, what to me the stories are so quite different from each other. I mean, they're the same frame or whatever, but the message and the
oh yeah, they are very different. But
atmosphere is very different. So if
yeah,
he was happy with that, that's interesting.
I think that's the point. Is that I think he felt, oh, this actually is better. So that's really part of what we're getting at
Uh-huh.
here is according to what I've read, the it's apparently the case that Carver did not object across the board. He seems to even have objected only to a small percentage of like in terms of serious objection, it was really only a few, like
Mhm.
five tops, arguably only three. It depends on how you interpret his comments. A couple of them were he objected, but it only over small things, really. I'll read the what we're calling the Carver version, which again is slightly misleading, but basically the one that Carver initially approved.
Right. That was struggling with what to call each one, but right. So the Carver version. All right.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, in the kitchen, he poured another drink and looked at the bedroom suite in his front yard. The mattress was stripped, and the candy-striped sheets lay beside two pillows on the chiffonier. Except for that, things looked much the way they had in the bedroom. Nightstand and reading lamp, nightstand and reading lamp on his side of the bed, a nightstand and reading lamp on her side of the bed. His side, her side. He considered this as he sipped the whiskey.
Okay, so let's take a look at a couple things there. First of all, uh, in my version, it's nightstand and reading lamp on his side of the bed, comma, nightstand and reading lamp on her side. So that word a is taken out.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah, you mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. A
And
nightstand and reading lamp. Yes.
did not what do you see why or how that makes it different?
I I today to nightstand and reading lamp on his side. A nightstand. Yes, I do. Though I don't, and that's not it's far from the most dramatic edits that we're going to get into.
Agreed. Yeah.
But yes, yeah. What does that mean to you? A
I,
nightstand and reading.
what I think is that it just kind of changes the rhythm of it.
Yeah.
Nightstand and reading lamp on his side of the bed, nightstand and reading lamp on her side. It makes them exactly the same.
Yes.
And
Right.
I think that's more powerful.
Maybe it helps you
Again,
see
I
the
agree with you. It's not a
reality.
huge difference, but it's the kind of thing that Lish cared about, and
Oh yeah.
it feels like leaving that A in there is sloppy, but that's of course the benefit of hindsight, um, because it's kind of obvious that they're supposed to be parallel like that.
Right. And he wants you to see that. Also, really for me, I mean, not to just jump right in, but for me, the meat of this story, the theme of this story is about a relationship. When the when the young kids come along, as we're going to see, that's a relationship that's together. This is a relationship, as we're going to see. I'm not giving anything away, that there's no woman, there's no wife in
Yeah,
this thing. She's gone, right?
yeah,
So nightstand and read. So it's about these like separations and these, nightstand and reading lamp on his side, nightstand and reading
yes,
lamp on her side.
yeah,
So they
exactly.
maybe a nightstand is kind of hurting your focus on that, because the focus should be this separation
Yeah,
of things,
right.
but also with this weird, not weird, but with this kind of underlying sort of acceptance and understanding that this was a bed that they both had, and this was
Yeah,
that in fact that was their togetherness. But now it just, it's very interesting, that,
yeah,
and the rest of the story talks a lot about things that you could take as a sign of being together or apart. It's interesting.
yeah, yeah. See, all that stuff is stuff I didn't notice, so I'm glad you're pointing it out, and I think it's right. And the thing is, it's sort of separate but equal. Like they both have they both have whatever it is, the
Yeah,
lamp,
yeah,
the
yeah.
nightstand and reading lamp. They both have it. It makes it sound like it's identical. If you take that A out, they sound even more like the same thing,
Yes,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is interesting.
So then I
Separate
think
but
that,
equal, kind of.
and then the next thing, this is what people who are, you can't tell by just listening, as I think you're going to mention maybe the next edit, right? The fact that in your version, his side and her side are separate lines.
That's right. It gives them paragraph breaks,
There you go. Right,
whereas
right.
they're all part of the same first paragraph in the original. Now, I want to point out that's actually a brilliant edit, I think,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I can't remember what there was a Russian writer named I'm not sure I'm saying his name right. Isak Babel, maybe.
Okay.
Something it's Babel though, Babel, like Tower of Babel, and he was a brilliant writer, and he talked in some story uh, about how a paragraph break had all the drama of a crash of lightning. Like he said, paragraph breaks are a big deal. They give you some energy and intensity, and you should take advantage of that as a writer, which was I think is good advice, and I'm sure Lish
In this
agreed.
case, it's obvious like that the message is, or it really is trying to get you to see his side, her side,
Yeah,
and
Lish realized that's a
pausing.
big part of the story. You should just give it its own paragraph. It's he didn't change the words. He just moved the line down a little bit. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to point out another thing. This is one of the things that everybody. I mean, first of all, Lish has talked about this in endless interviews, but also people that talk about Lish and working with him say this. That one of his big things, arguably the biggest thing, was that your first sentence had to just be pure dynamite.
Yeah.
Couldn't have a lame first sentence. When he was doing his classes, which I am glad that I never took. I have a feeling that I would have probably psychologically just crumbled if I'd been in his classes. But we'll never know now because he doesn't do it anymore. But people that took his classes say that he would ask people to submit stuff for him to read in class to the class. And if he didn't like the first sentence, it was just sorry. You just give it
Well,
back.
how
Be
many first
harsh.
sentences do we know? I mean, all classic, there's 1,000. That's what's great about
Well,
great
yeah,
novels.
I mean, Lish's attitude was this is just a rule. Your first sentence has to, not only does it have to be good, it's not only that, it's that the whole rest of the story has to flow from it in some way. Now,
Yeah,
some would argue that's a little too rigid. I'm sure we could find good stories where that doesn't, I mean,
but it can, I tell you, man, a bad first sentence, a bad first paragraph, is a killer. I'm done.
yeah,
I'll give you a try and
yes.
I'll keep trying, but it'll be hard to shake the fact that you disappointed me in the first sentence.
Agreed. No, that's exactly right, and that's what Lish was saying, and I feel that that's good advice. It's painful. I'm sure it wouldn't be fun to turn in your story and have him be an asshole about it, but I mean, his attitude was it's for your own good. Why isn't your first sentence strong?
Why isn't
What
it?
the hell are you doing over there?
Right, right,
This is your job. I mean,
right, right.
I think he just was very passionate about trying to make people great writers, and he did make quite a few people into great writers. In some
Mhm.
cases, people that were barely writers at all before they hooked up with him, all of a sudden, you know, like a short time later, and they've written some incredible thing. Like an interesting example of that, which maybe we'll get into in a future episode, is this author Amy Hempel, who I had never heard of. I think her career began in the '80s, and there were a lot of writers back then, and I didn't pay attention to most of them. I wasn't really. I mean, I read Carver, and I didn't read a lot of other people.
Mm.
I never read the famous people like Jay McInerney. I never read him. I never read Bret Easton Ellis. I just avoided all of it, and except for
Yeah,
Carver.
I read a few of them.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't need to slam those people now. I'm just pointing out that Amy Hempel was not on my radar until recently, when I started looking for anybody who was influenced by Lish. I became
Uh-huh.
curious about it. And this is worth saying. I know we've already gotten into the book, but this was an aside I wanted to get into. What you find is that I started listening to podcasts where writers who worked with Lish were either students of his, or maybe in every case the people I listened to were students of his. I think that's right. But all of them said that they all had variations on, I didn't really have much going for me before I met Lish or Gordon, and his advice was so great that I use it to this day in every single story. Like a bunch of them said things like that.
Uh-huh.
Diane Williams said basically learned how to edit from him, and you can read her stuff today and realize she edits obsessively because the stuff is so weird. There's no way she couldn't write it off the top of her head. Like the ultimate effect she goes for is so strange that she has to edit to get to it. It doesn't just come out of her head like that, which is
Yeah.
fascinating. And his attitude was that's what you have to do is you have to edit to get to that thing that you can do that no one else can do. And he also and Amy Hempel, coming back to her, she said that he gave them an assignment in class, which was to write about the thing that is the most painful for you to be honest about that you don't want people to know about you. And that might seem like a kind of a like I wouldn't necessarily believe that giving that assignment would mean that a bunch of classic stories would be written. But one classic story was written that one day, he said it, because she did the assignment. And this is amazing. She wrote a story called I'm probably going to get the title wrong. I believe it's called In the Cemetery Where Al Jolson is Buried. Something
Oh,
that's pretty close. I'm not sure I'm getting the wording exactly right. But she wrote that as an assignment for Lish, and it got published and became, maybe famous is a stretch, but in the world of people that
uh-huh.
read short stories, it became famous. She literally became a known quantity just for that one, for her first story ever. It blew people away, and it's a really great story. And I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to say that
Okay.
that's an amazing, like she doesn't have any incentive to say anything bad about Lish because he made her career. He made her, so she didn't even have any short stories yet. She took his class, writes one story, and it's a classic. And it's still, to this day, considered by a lot of people to be the best thing she ever wrote, which is, it's fascinating. So, and there
Uh-huh.
were several stories like that. So, Christine Scutt, another great writer, that took classes with Lish, she had written some stuff and was trying to be a more what you might call like a more conventional writer. She said she was trying to write like Ann Beattie, who is a fiction writer whose work I barely know. I all I did was skim a little bit of her work just to follow up on that comment, but it was very good, and it was just more conventional. It was conventional in the sense of chronological events, and things are explained very clearly. There was no mystery. None of the things we associate with Lish. Because I should say, I don't know if we mentioned this. He was interested in mystery. He liked it when things were a little mysterious. He didn't like everything explained. He thought that was bad.
That's a bit clear with what we're looking at tonight, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna find a lot of examples. Let me wrap up the point about Christine Scutt by saying she had written some short stories that weren't very good, and Lish pointed her in this direction of the various technical things he talked about, like the first sentence and all of that, and everything flowing from it, but also his idea that you have to do something dangerous. You got to write something that you're scared to write about a little bit.
Yeah.
And she did that and ended up becoming not a celebrity, but very well regarded, and came close to getting a Pulitzer Prize at one point.
Hmm.
Um, so the point is that if you, I've also read stories of that people that either were edited by Lish or well, I think that's the one particular example I'm thinking of is a guy named Paul Bowles, who was a terrific writer. I had no idea he ever had run across Gordon Lish. I think he must have turned something in at Esquire, and Lish made all these edits, and Bowles' attitude was no.
Um,
He just walked away. Like at least the quote I saw made it sound like he just basically refused. He said, "I didn't have any understanding of what he was doing with any of his edits. It made no sense to me." And the thing is, Bowles is a terrific writer who's not a sloppy writer at all. So we don't know. Unfortunately, it would be interesting to read Lish's edit that didn't pass muster for the writer. The reason I'm telling that story is to say that I feel there were basically two main ways to react to Gordon Lish. You either said no way and you slammed the door behind you. Some people did that. Other people, because a lot of people would leave his classes because he was
uh-huh.
mean and nasty sometimes, and he wouldn't let you go to the bathroom. It's like a 6 hour class. If I was taking his class today, I would basically just have to get more assertive than I normally am, and I would have to tell him, I'm going out that door because I'm
Right.
going to that bathroom.
Right.
I understand your policy, but I'm making an exception. Like, this is happening.
Right.
It's not an option. Like, maybe when I was in my 20s, I probably could have held it, but
Right.
not
Right.
now. Anyway,
All right.
so okay, so the point is there are basically two ways. You could just stomp out and say fuck you and never talk to him again, which a lot of people did. And the other option was you could take his advice and become a better writer. And so the point I'm getting at is lots of people picked one of those. They either people reacted very strongly. It was either no way, or it was tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it.
Uh-huh.
And for the most part, those are the two ways of reacting. The Carver reaction is the only one we know of that's not either one of those.
Right.
He couldn't make up his mind. Like he didn't want to say no to Lish, but he also because he knew Lish was good. I mean, my guess is Carver was torn because he liked the stories the way he'd written them, but had a pretty good sense that if Lish's edits went out, that people would like it. My guess is he thought this makes sense, even though I don't like it. I mean, that's you don't have to speculate with me, but I mean, it
It
appears
sounds
that he
like it.
was of two minds about it when he wrote to him. That he was the and it's important to say that even though he okayed it, even if in a sort of a half-assed, equivocal way, he did okay it, and then later told his wife he wanted her to put out the. So in other words, my suspicion is he went back and forth until he died. Like he couldn't make up his mind, and he didn't publicly denounce the edits, as far as I know. In fact, I heard somewhere, this wasn't corroborated, but I heard someone suggesting in a podcast that Carver occasionally took credit for things Lish had done where people said, "You did this and that and the other," and he would make it sound like that was his intention and didn't mention Lish. Now, I don't. That story wasn't corroborated, but I did. Some reliable person did say that, and I thought, yeah, it kind of makes it seem like he didn't know how to. First of all, he's coming out of being an alcoholic for many years, and
Mhm.
I'm not an expert on alcoholism, but my understanding is that you see the whole world through that lens, and when you sober up, it becomes confusing to
Oh yeah.
negotiate the world the way you're used to negotiating it with a beer, or whatever,
Mhm.
and or in Carver's case, what did they drank a lot of gin, I think, in those stories, but also bourbon.
I
There's
don't
just
know. They're drinking
tons of
whiskey
drinking
and
happening in those stories.
yeah, yeah,
I think in Why Don't You Dance, which we should get back into
yeah.
after this long digression, I think that one they're drinking bourbon or whiskey.
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Okay. So
Unnamed whiskey.
so let me read the first sentence because first of all, with all the things that I'm criticizing about Carver, this sentence is great, and Carver apparently wrote this sentence.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah.
yeah, the first one, it's in the kitchen. He poured another drink and looked at the bedroom suite in his front yard.
Right.
That's great because it's so subtle. He doesn't make a big deal out of it. You just wait. What did he say? Bedroom suite in his front.
Right, right.
Like, and then he just continues as if it's normal. And I think it's fair to say that with all of Lish's brilliant edits, it's fair to say that it is a brilliant idea for a story. Like
And it's, oh, the
even if you
whole story
hated,
is right there.
yeah, even if you hated the Carver version, you can't take away from him that it was a great idea.
It's a great idea, and really the whole story, yeah, as you mentioned before, how the first line needs to like have the whole story is right there, right?
Yeah,
The whole
yeah,
story.
that's right. It all basically just stems from that first sentence, which is exactly what Lish said to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's get back into the story. So now I guess it's back to you with the
So
chiffonier.
we've got to okay. So
Yeah, we
all right.
barely got anywhere because I
In the
talked.
kitchen, he poured the drink right,
Yeah,
and then except for that, things looked much the way they had in the bedroom: nightstand and reading lamp on his side of the bed, a nightstand in my version, a nightstand, reading lamp on her side, his side, her side. He considered this as he sipped the whiskey. Okay, so then that's where we are.
yeah,
The chiffonier, I don't, how do you pronounce that? Chiffonier?
probably chiffonier. I don't know.
Chiffonier stood a few feet from the foot of the bed. He had emptied the drawers into cartons that morning, and the cartons were in the living room. A portable heater was next to the chiffonier. A rattan chair with a decorator pillow stood at the foot of the bed. The buffed aluminum kitchen set occupied a part of the driveway.
Oh, that's a spot. I don't have
Okay.
that in the highlight, but I seem to recall that in okay in
Oh,
the that you say occupied
yes.
in the released version, the list version, it says took up.
Yes.
Now,
Took up
okay,
part
now
of the livable.
this is I think a fair example of a pretty subtle difference.
Yes. Just a little
Occupied,
bit.
took up. It's just a different kind of
I think
like
that's about flow. That's prose.
yeah, occupied sounds they just I mean they don't mean they mean the same thing, but somehow there's a different vibe to them.
Yeah.
Like
Occupied. Right. Right. Definitely.
it
Took
sound
up part.
occupied sounds more active.
It does. It
It,
does.
it took up sounds like you're just taking up space.
It does. And I think that's an important point because many of the edits that I appreciate, many of Lish's edits that I appreciate are about getting stuff, not getting it out of well, I suppose in the yes, in this case, getting it out of the way, but also not having the stuff get in the way or be distracting from the rest of the story or from the meat of the story or the message. So, took up part of the driveway, you get the message occupied, you're like, you know,
Yeah, it
kind of
calls
grabs a
attention
little
to
brain
itself a
cell.
little bit. I think
Yeah.
that word.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's I didn't know, that's it's interesting,
Yeah, I mean,
but
this
the
is
next
definitely a
here,
thing where this is the benefit of hindsight. It's easy for us to, none of us are, neither of us are great fiction writers. It's easy for us to say, oh, well, it's obvious that it shouldn't have been occupied. But I just think it's the benefit of hindsight. If we were
oh
editing, we
yeah,
probably wouldn't have changed that, but Lish did.
oh
And
yeah, I
we
caught it.
now that we
Yeah, yeah,
see it his way, we think, yeah, it
definitely,
makes sense.
definitely. And I can see though, I can see if you had your editing chops, like Lish for him, he probably was like that was probably like, oh, like
I
not,
would guess.
that was like, very, he caught that right away, right?
Yeah.
But so if you were an editor with chops, probably you would pick that up.
Well, yeah, but again, one of the many twists and turns. I ask you to recall the endless dissertation that I got into early here, where it turned out Lish did, in fact, not change that the first time he edited it.
Oh, yeah, he missed it maybe.
Well, he missed a ton
Yeah,
because remember what we're calling the Carver version. I mean, for some people, this is probably hopelessly dull and way too detailed. But in my opinion, these details matter. So
yeah,
basically, Lish edited that story, and the Carver version had been edited by Lish, just not very much.
right, right, right,
So we
right.
don't know exactly. I'd love to take Lish aside and say, why didn't you make those changes the first time? And I mean, I can imagine that he might say, because I just didn't see I think he had a deeper understanding of the story after he did the first edit.
Yeah,
I
well,
think when
yeah,
he came back, I think he looked at it with a closer look. That's my guess, is that
sure,
he just hadn't noticed what it could be. Because you have
sure.
to remember, in his defense, he's imagining a story that didn't exist. Like we're
Yes,
comparing two things that exist, but he's imagining
yes.
something that didn't. So it's not a heinous crime that he didn't see it the first time.
No, 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 no. But it is interesting and does matter. It makes the difference
I think it
that,
definitely matters.
took up part versus that.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so then
So now we've got another thing coming up
well,
that's
now we have that. What I was going to say is now we have a pretty dramatic. So I'm going to read this whole rest of the paragraph because because Lish, as you will find, reworks the paragraph, makes changes, but also kind of reworks it.
mm,
So here's the whole paragraph. So that's the buffed aluminum kitchen set in my set occupied a part of the driveway. A yellow muslin cloth, much too large, a gift, covered the table and hung down over the sides. A potted fern was on the table, along with the box of silverware, also a gift. A big console model television set, a big console model television set rested on a coffee table. And a few feet away from this, a sofa and chair and a floor lamp. He had run an extension cord from the house and everything was connected. Things worked. I guess I'll stop there
yeah.
because I
Let's
think
stop there because there's already
okay.
a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
Why
So
don't you
things
go
worked.
first? What are your
Well, the
observations?
one thing I'd sort of dub so in my one thing that I caught, I really do like that sentence. He had run an extension cord from the house and everything was connected.
Mhm.
Things worked, and I prefer that over Lish's edit, which you're going to get to.
Well, I should say, Lish actually did use those sentences, but he moved them. He put them a
Yeah, but he
few.
changed a little bit the
He
extension.
did change a little bit. Yeah, yeah. He moved
Oh,
them and he reworked them slightly.
yeah, yeah.
The
So
thing
anyway,
that he wanted you to understand. Okay, why don't we jump ahead to that because it's all interconnected. This is what I think Lish was thinking. I think he felt that the whole business of the extension cord was absolutely crucial to the story.
yeah,
Because it's insane that he did that. The
it's
character,
nuts that he did it. It's
it's
nuts.
nuts, and so it's really important. But I think Lish probably just felt it would be stronger after some of that other stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what happened there. So he moved it. He did change it slightly. There's a less interesting example of a change in there where the thing about something was a gift. He he put
Yeah.
in here we're getting into the thing where I can't even keep track of the two versions easily. Did your part that you just read have the part about the record player? Was that in there?
No, that comes just a
That
little bit
that
later.
comes a little later. Okay. So the whole thing about I have a potted fern was on the table and a few feet away from this stood a sofa and chair and floor lamp. You had
Right.
a whole bunch of
That's
other
the
stuff
edited
that
version.
what's that?
That's like Lish's version.
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
Lish's, and it's pretty different. It's not
Right.
necessarily different in an interesting way, maybe, but it is different.
Later we learn about those same objects, but in Lish's version, but not but Carver puts them all like hits you with them all right away.
Yeah, and okay, so let's talk about that because I think you put your finger on it. Um, he did make Lish made some changes to the wording, but I think the more significant thing was that he moved it. He removed some of this. Like I think he
Right.
felt too much of it all to my. I mean, I can tell you what happens when I read the original. I get bored somewhere in
A
there
little bit, yeah.
because it doesn't seem to be that interesting or important. And I think Lish's attitude, I'm guessing here, was that uh, that line is important, and I don't want people to zone out and not see it. They need to see it, and he put it in a place where it was harder to miss it.
Right,
Maybe
right. He
that's my
did.
guess. Is and now
I
that
think he also anyway, well,
go
can
ahead.
we do this? Can we here? Because not to because it's so important. He so anyway, so
Yeah, go
here
ahead.
I'm just gonna a potted fern was on the table along with a box of silverware, also a gift. A big console model television set rested on the coffee table a few feet away from this, a sofa and chair and a floor lamp. He had run an extension cord from the house and everything was connected, things worked. So can you why don't you go ahead quickly and read the Carver or the
Okay,
Lish.
yeah, because that's not terrible. It's not like that's bad what you just
In
said.
some ways it's better and doesn't for me it's better
You
in
mean
this
the Carver
particular
version?
edit. Yes, that
Okay,
particular well it's interesting where he puts where I agree that Lish the moving of where the extension cord is in the story is better in Lish's version. There's something that you're going to read in a second which I think is not as good.
okay. So let's see. Yeah, because there's a lot here
And
that
a
I
little
think Lish
button,
wrote, and
you
it's
know.
pretty long, and yeah, it's not so special in itself. He says a potted fern was on the table. A few feet away from this stood a sofa and chair and a floor lamp. I'm pretty sure that's only in Lish's version. And then
Yes.
he says the desk was pushed against the garage door. A few utensils were on the desk, along with a wall clock and two framed prints. There was also in the driveway a carton with cups, glasses, and plates, each object wrapped in newspaper. That morning, he had cleared out the closets, and except for the three cartons in the living room, all the stuff was out of the home. He had run an extension cord on out there, and everything was connected. Things worked no different from how it was when they were inside.
I don't
So,
think it's necessary to say things were no different from how it was when they were inside. I think that's a
yeah,
mistake.
I'll go along with you on that. My
I
this
think that come on,
I don't love that. So we can
it's a
give
little
Carver.
bit. It's a little bit like if you have to be told that, you should
Yeah,
go do some more reading or something.
that's one of the few where I think I don't exactly know why Lish did that,
I
but
like the he had run an extension cord from the house and everything was connected, things worked.
yeah,
Stop.
that right.
Yeah,
I like it. I'm with you.
there you go.
I think we can take Lish off the pedestal briefly to say that
Right,
that
right.
I don't get what he was.
You missed it on that one.
Yeah, but the point is that overall that whole section is I think are better.
Yes, it is. It is, and he just reworks it, because for the readers, I don't know the people who are listening to this, if they are any, the 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 thing about the desk was pushed against the garage door. All of that information about the few utensils that's identical in both stories.
Yeah,
But then but above in my story in the Carver version, the extension cord being connected is above all of that.
yeah, it's in a different
Then you
place.
kind of lose that because you go on about where the stuff is and the wrapped in newspaper and where the things are, and you've lost that hit about the extension cord and things working.
Yeah,
So
it
that's
blunts
where
the effectiveness of it when you have it mixed in with the other stuff.
right,
Yeah,
right, right,
yeah.
right.
So I think what we can say is overall, Lish greatly improved that using a subtle thing that most people wouldn't have thought of.
Right.
And
I
if we
would say,
disagree with him on that one little thing, it's not such a big deal.
and also there's this important edit here where in mine, so in the last, so my last paragraph, so you read the paragraph, Carl, and the thing about, so the desk was pushed against the garage door,
Yeah.
the few utensils were on the desk, and blah, blah, blah. And that morning he had cleared out the closets except for the three cartons in the living room. Then we have and then in the Lish version, it says all of the stuff was out of the home. And in
Oh,
the
let me see
Carver
this.
version, it says everything was out of the house. And that's, I think,
Okay.
important because
That's
the
a
home,
profound difference. Yeah.
the
The home.
home house is a house, the
Hmm.
home.
Yeah, sure.
And that's now a broken home, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the home,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Yeah.
and
Good
everything
call.
was connected. So, and in fact, we can look at that. Everything was connected and things worked as it was in the home. And so all of that
Hmm.
joining and those things being together is
Yeah.
more, it hits you harder that home's now broken.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Good eye.
so yeah.
So yes, okay. So I had not noticed that. I'm glad that you did. So then, can you read the next part? Because we're getting to an interesting
We
small
are.
thing that I'm excited about. So
We are. And so anyway, so that morning he had cleared out the closets except for the three cartons in the living room. Everything was out of the house.
yeah,
Now and then a car slowed and people stared, but no one stopped. It occurred to him that he wouldn't either. It must be a yard sale, for God's sake, said the girl to the boy.
Oh, okay. There you go. Because for God's sakes, let's cut that out.
Right. So that's
And
why I'm going to stop there.
yeah, and um, I think that was a good call because it doesn't even you said this
Well,
to me at one
that's
point.
where, can I stop you
Oh
for? I
yeah,
think it's
please
important
do.
because I don't know if people are reading along your version. So my version, I'm going to call it my version. Now and then a car slowed and people stared, but no one stopped. It occurred to him that he wouldn't either. It must be a yard sale, for God's sake, said the girl to the boy. And then in the Carver version, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, in the Carver version,
Now and then,
or rather in the Lish
sorry,
version,
English version.
yeah,
Sorry.
in the Lish version it says, "It must be a yard sale," the girl said to the boy, and then it says, "This girl and this boy were furnishing a little apartment." Now I want to point out I think this is the first time Lish was truly inspired in a thing he added or
Yeah,
changed.
he's really getting warmed up.
Yeah, right. Because this girl and this boy, that's so good.
And it's really good compared to the original version, which is this girl and boy were furnishing a little apartment.
Yeah, I mean,
This
and
girl
again,
and this boy.
I guess the kind of people that would think that we are making a big deal out of nothing in that example most likely have tuned out long ago.
Right, right,
They didn't
right,
they didn't have to wait for that to all right, forget it. These guys are so full of shit.
right, right.
So anybody who's still listening, I assume, hears that and agrees with us that
It's gonna
it's a
be like,
pretty dramatic difference and a really interesting difference, I think.
right.
Because do you want to talk about this? You said something about this the other day where you were something to do with you don't know as much about those people when he didn't want
Okay.
us to be so conscious of them as people.
Yes. So when in the Carver version, it must be a yard sale, for God's sake, said the girl to the boy. In the Lish version, okay, I'll read the whole two things
Go
actually.
ahead.
It must be a yard sale, for God's sake, said the girl to the boy. This girl and boy were furnishing a little apartment. It must be, and then in the Lish version, it said it must be a yard sale, said the boy to the girl to the boy. This girl and this boy were furnishing a little apartment.
Yeah.
So because the for God's sake, like now she's like has this like it just feels like she's, I don't know, like I don't want to know that much about her yet.
Well, yeah. You don't want to know that much about her.
And and she in fact it's her, it's not, anyway, later in the story it's kind of her development and her kind of, I don't know, you learn more about her later. And the for God's sake, it just feels kind of a little bit too like the light is on her,
Yeah,
when
right.
really the light from her perspective and the viewers, whatever the readers, is that, oh, they've come upon this thing in this driveway and there's this weird guy and he's got the stuff in the driveway and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a lamp and
It's
so I don't know, I just, the for God's sake felt like it detracted.
it just feels wrong. Like he first of all calls attention to her a little bit. It gives her a personality that she
There,
doesn't
that's
have
what
in
I,
the
yeah.
final version.
Not only that, it gives her a
She's
personality.
mostly a cipher with. In fact, this is one of the things I love about this. This is a thing about the story that makes me read it over and over. I'm constantly trying to figure out why the hell is she dancing with him in that weird, intimate way. It's never
Oh,
explained, and you think. I guess the message is if you drink enough whiskey.
no. Well, I don't, maybe, I'm sorry, I
Well,
didn't.
no, that's okay. I mean, the point is that it makes you wonder. I think it's a little bit of that Lish mystery that, to be fair to Carver, was in there already. I just think Carver was sloppy about it. Like I think Carver gave you some mystery about them, but then was afraid it was too much, maybe, and kind of wrote again. I mean, it's debatable. It may be that he didn't want the mystery and Lish wanted. I mean, I don't really know, but the point I'm getting at is that it feels to me like Carver sometimes set things up and then undercut them by second guessing himself. Maybe. I mean, again,
It's
this is wild
changing the arc,
speculation.
kind of, in a
What's that?
weird way, moving the goalpost a little bit, or changing the arc, like he lost, like, he didn't, I don't know, like he
Well, yeah,
didn't,
I feel like he chickened out a little bit.
a little bit.
I feel like he was a little paranoid that it wouldn't work or it was too weird. Whereas Lish really leaned into the weirdness.
And he leaned into the message, which is for me like the ephemeralness of relationships to begin with,
Sure.
the the unknowns in any relationship, how you're all like, is it really, are you together, what is intimacy, what is,
Yeah.
and so like, and that's when the girl later, as we'll see, the way that she approaches the man, which is interesting as opposed to the Max in my story,
Yeah.
is frankly erotic,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
she's like, all of a sudden, what happened to this girl and this boy, right? And and so I don't know. I think the message is kind of about how, I don't know exactly, but the message for me, or the atmosphere, is this tenuousness of any relationship.
That seems valid to me. I mean, I think that's right. And here's another thing. Your idea of the pair. You talked about pairs. I think.
Yeah,
Remember, you were talking about how the marriage bed.
yeah.
We don't ever really hear anything about whoever. We don't even know if it's a woman, really. I
We
mean,
don't.
we
Right,
know
right. She's
nothing.
gone. That partner is out.
Well, I guess we know it's a woman because it was her. Okay, we know that, but we don't know anything else. It's
Oh,
not
right, right.
explained.
Her side, his side. Right, right. No,
Yeah, we don't
virtually
know
nothing. Literally, like nothing. She's
nothing. And it's
except she's
interesting,
gone.
his side and her side, perhaps I'm reading into it here, but it's an interesting choice of words because that seems to suggest your side of an argument,
Well, it's a dichotomy
a
thing. It's like, if
dichotomy thing.
you could take it like his side and her side, and then the bed is theirs, and his side and her side, and in whatever, and it's loving, and isn't it beautiful? Or his side and her side, you know.
Yeah, no, that's
So
right. Exactly. Yeah. And and by the way, do you see this as a dichotomy or duality?
I don't know if I'm using the right words. I don't know.
I'm just
What are you
I'm
using?
just joking because I'm talking like a college professor. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is.
But
I think we're
like, I guess
we both like
duality.
the idea that there's two things that are kind of
That
similar,
can
but also
represent pretty different things, or
yeah, they
good.
can represent
They
different
can
things.
then be completely negative, or I don't know if you want to say negative, but completely this or completely that. They
Yeah,
can be something, a sign of togetherness or a sign of division.
exactly. That's exactly right. And also you have this might seem a little bit college professory, but uh, you've got whatever happened with the man and his wife or girlfriend. We don't know about that, and then we have the young couple. So there's opposition. There's as you might say a dichotomy
There's
between.
like a tension,
Yeah,
but
yeah. There's a tension between those two things, and that tension helps get the message across. I think.
yes, and Lish, by saying this girl and this boy, as opposed to this girl and boy, or he's not letting you forget that.
Yeah, he kind of. I think that wording
Oh,
implies that it's sort of arbitrary that they're even together.
well,
This girl and
implies
this
that
boy could have
there's a
been. It could have
chance.
been another girl and another. Like to
It's,
me, maybe I'm
right,
reading into it, but
right, right. That it for me, it feels like, definitely, it's somehow, and this may not be true. Like, I know couples that are completely incredible together and will go forever together, and like, you can't imagine them being apart. But I think that's not the message I'm getting from Lish. Is that maybe like all relationships have this, like, it could maybe blow up.
yeah, I mean, I think I mean, whether that's literally true or not, it's certainly an interesting message
This
that
boy and
is.
this girl, it just feels like they're not quite, or maybe he doesn't want them together, or the writer doesn't want them together, or the God doesn't want that security. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you read this story, it's funny. Like we've hardly even got into it. We've had so much to say, because I think that's what's so great. I think that's why this is worth doing because even though I consider Carver flawed in some ways, we're looking at a brilliant piece of work here,
Definitely,
and
definitely.
and and, and
And
it's worth discussing why it's brilliant, and that's why I think all of these details are interesting. But let me say one more thing before we move on. It's not when I read the story, I don't come away thinking, those two crazy kids, they obviously are going to be together forever. I don't know.
no,
They might not be. Like it makes you want, like again, the thing where she's dancing with this older guy, and as you say, it gets a little erotic, and you think, isn't that a little weird that she would be doing that with her either husband or
arms wide
boyfriend
open.
sitting right there? It's odd that she didn't feel self. She doesn't appear to feel self conscious about it.
She doesn't appear to feel something. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
But
we'll get to it.
she
Right.
moments before was telling the boy how much she loved him, and he had to like push away, like he had to, she was wanting him to kiss her, and then arms
Oh,
wide open towards the man.
now I apologize for doing this. I think maybe some of that kissing business is not in. I'll have to double check how much of that makes it into the final. I can't remember.
It is, but not in such a way. It's there are
It's
fewer, literally
trimmed a little
fewer
bit.
words kiss.
Okay, trimmed a little bit, but he didn't jerk it all the way out. He just
No,
let it
no,
dangle.
but he made her attachment to him less.
Okay, because you got okay. It sounds funny to put it this way, but you got two kiss me's. It's it's
It
it's
matters.
it's kiss me and then let's get up. He said, and then kiss me. She said.
That's
She
in your
closed
version.
her eyes. She held him, and then he says, "I'll see if anybody's home." To me,
Yeah.
that's really significant. That she's trying to get him to kiss her, and he's not really paying attention. He's
Right.
more interested in the house and investigating and
Yeah,
and I feel like Lish wanted that and I now you've got the original was that in there a little bit in the Carver
it
version?
is. But she's my. Well, let's get to that in a second
Okay,
because let's go. So okay.
okay.
So
Oh yeah, I skipped ahead. I'm sorry.
so the
We're back.
the kids drive up. It must be a yard sale, for God's sake, said the boy, said the girl to the boy. This girl and boy were furnishing a little apartment, and then your version is this girl and this boy. So we talked about that. And then my version is, let's see what they want for the bed. The girl said, I wonder what they want for the TV. The boy said he pulled into the driveway and stopped in front of the kitchen table.
Okay.
And then
So in my version, the boy says "and for the TV." That's a pretty subtle
it is,
adjustment. It's
and
not
so
so important.
you're in your version. Let's see what they want for the bed, said the girl, and for the TV, said the boy, right? The boy, and
Yeah,
then the boy pulled into the driveway,
yeah.
as
Is
opposed to
that
he pulled into the driveway.
what's the Carver version?
The Carver version is he pulled into the driveway and
And then
stopped in
here
front
it's
of the kitchen
the
table.
boy pulled into the driveway.
Yeah,
So that to me feels like I mean again maybe we're just pretending to know more than we know, but that feels to me that Lish felt that saying the boy had a power that he didn't have. If
yeah.
he didn't want to say he pulled in, and when the boy pulled in, because it almost makes it more like a fable in a way.
It also keeps, I think that keeps that, for me, I don't even know why. I mean, I spent a long time thinking about what is it like, what is they're driving at here, but that thing about how they're separate entities, the boy and the girl. And he
Yeah,
keeps hammering on that, the
yeah,
boy
yeah, yeah.
and the girl and the man.
The man, yeah.
And like the boy, it's just that kind of like, they keep hammering on that they're not, it's not the couple. It's not the
No,
couple didn't drive
no,
into
that's
the
right.
driveway.
It's in fact,
It's
I don't. I'm. We'll find out as we go through it, but let's look for this.
no,
I'm
it's
not sure.
never.
There's what.
It's never. It's
There's
always
never a
the
point
boy
where
and the
it's even
girl.
they. Is that right? Like
Right.
he never
Oh,
says
it is.
they.
No, in my version, there is a few days. In yours, there's
Oh, so
fewer,
Lish
if
cut those
any.
out. The theys even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's again. That's my guess is that once Lish got the idea of making them more abstract, if you want to say it that way, he went through and just completely looked for everything that might that was related to that.
I think Lish decided that's what I mean. And, I don't know what the best format is here. Like, do we read the whole story and go back or whatever? But it feels like Lish said, this is my message and I'm going to kill it. I'm going to
Yeah,
not let you escape from it.
I think
And
that's right.
Carver said, this is my message, and I'm a little bit weak about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I feel like Carver is almost where Lish is, but then keeps putting in stuff that doesn't fit, and we don't really know
Right.
whether he was trying to do that and just bungled it, or I mean, my guess is he didn't really see what Lish saw. But
In some
but
ways,
again, that's definitely idle speculation. We don't
yeah. With regards to the character of the man that we're going to get to, I think Carver's. But later, I mean, it's interesting that you said Carver was totally down with Lish's edit,
on
because
this story. Yeah,
the character of the
he didn't
man
balk at it.
in Carver's version is weaker, more adrift, more sad, more whatever. I'm not whatever, but more sad, more mystified about maybe what had happened in his life. whereas the man in your story or in the Lish's version seems more jaded and more kind of a veteran of these, and maybe this wasn't even his first breakup,
Yeah,
and
you don't really like it. Again, these are things you wonder about because they're kept mysterious,
yeah.
which I
But he
think
seems a
adds
more,
to the
he is a
power of
harder,
it.
definitely a harder edge
I mean,
in this.
try to imagine. I mean, even Carver didn't do this, but try to imagine a paragraph about back in the days when he was married to Bertha. You know, they used to like going to the dog race. Like, you don't want all that.
Meaning,
Even Carver didn't put any of that
no, no, the key, the Carver, no, that's true, and the part of the genius of the Carver vision of even having a story like this is that she's not even there at all.
in. He's
She's
not even there
gone.
yet.
She's
And and
gone.
I, and I,
This is the aftermath.
and I'll say this like as a way of pretending that my idle speculation is actually based on like it's in. I'm going to argue that it's slightly informed. I'm going to try to make that case here. Here's the thing. I read a bunch of other, or at least skimmed a bunch of other Carver stories as preparation for this, just to kind of just so I'd know a little bit more than just the one story. And story after story, characters would be in a scene, and then they would either be talking about their backstory, or Carver as narrator would put in some details like the summer before, blah blah. Like he does that a lot, and it's in a lot of stories, or at least several. I noticed it several times, and I didn't even really look for it, and I noticed it. And in fact, the reason I noticed it was because I would be getting bored with the story and thinking, do I really have to read the Carver version every time? Because some of them are boring. Because some of the ones where he cut out like 78%, those are ones where where it's just like a whole bunch of extra stuff that you don't want if you're
Uh-huh.
used to the Lish version. And so I guess here's why I'm bringing that up, because the fact that he didn't give you any details about the mystery wife, to me suggests that he did have some idea, and that Lish may have improved on it.
Right. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to
I think we can give Carver
definitely. Oh
at
yeah.
least some credit for like he that was
Oh.
deliberate that he didn't put those details in. Is what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah, 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 yeah. Of course, and a huge, tons of credit. He put the whole story together and had this bedroom suite in the front yard and
Yeah,
things mostly in boxes, but some things not in boxes, and all of that is that's Carver.
yeah. Now I remember reading this when we were younger. I guess we were probably. I'm pretty sure I started reading Raymond Carver like 5 or 6 years after that book came out. I could be wrong, but I feel like I came into it a few years after he was like, in other words, Carver made a big splash with that book, but I was young at the time and probably didn't notice. And a few years later, I was working at a bookstore, and everybody was reading that book at that point. And my guess is what happened was at a certain point, just young people all read that in a certain world, and so it seemed to me everybody was reading Carver at the same time. I remember we had a bunch of friends who were reading Carver. All it's in my mind, it's all happening at the same time. Reading this story at the as a person who was like early 20s, probably when I read this, I remember thinking, why would the guy do all that? It's really weird. You know the thing about putting the stuff on the lawn,
Yeah.
and I think I wasn't old enough or experienced in life enough to realize that that kind of weird thing might seem normal to you if either alcohol played a role, I imagine, but also just the fact that the guy just wanted. What I've been thinking recently about it was he just didn't want to keep being reminded of the relationship. He doesn't say that, but it's just sort of the
And
obvious guess to me.
also, in an odd way, it's exactly the kind of thing guys in those positions do. Women don't do that, but a guy
Could
will do
be, yeah,
something odd like that and put everything on the front lawn and set it up. Like that really is fitting in a lot of ways,
well,
especially
yeah,
like a guy who has a drinking problem,
right, right.
maybe depressed and maybe bitter, and he's going to do this, and it's this weird. My father, when one time when my dad, this is what I can say because he's passed away now. When my parents were at the dregs of their marriage, and they were, like I mean, they were at the dregs of their marriage for a long time, but when they were really at the dregs of their marriage, that he hadn't moved out of the house yet. he moved. They had the third floor of the house, Stewart Avenue, which you know, that house.
Yeah.
He moved, quote, moved to the unfinished attic. It was an unfinished attic, and he put a twin mattress on the floor, and then he that's where he went, you know. And it was this childish like thing to she was supposed to like go after him or something, I don't know. But like he went up there and he set up a train set that had been up there for like friggin' 40 years. And he set up this train set. I'll never forget it. And it was set it up like in the you know unfinished floorboards of the attic.
And
And
he had a
he
model train going along
yes, not around the bed, but he had because he
okay
found it in a
in the
box and
attic.
in
He
his
set it up.
bitterness and his weird, bizarre, whatever the hell he was going through, he set up this train set. And then he was like, he told me about it. He was like, hey, I set up the train set. And I was like, I think you're losing your mind because you're
Yes. Yeah. Right. I
because he
mean,
had set up
it,
he went up
it
and put this twin bed up there, and
yes.
that was his behavior. My mom was always supposed she was supposed to like go after him, and he would do that, you know, our whole childhood, like in various ways of removing himself, and you were supposed to go run after
Yeah.
him. But that behavior, that weird kind of thing where he did that, and so him putting the bedroom set on the lawn and plugging it in is this weird kind of inner child thing.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good insight. And the thing is that what you just said about your dad with the model train, that sounds like a Carver story, I
I'll
think.
never forget it.
It really, yeah,
Oh yeah,
that is it is definitely similar, I think.
and it was
Sure.
just it was sad. It was the bed was on the floor. You know, it wasn't even it was an unfinished attic. Like you could see the rafters and everything. Like it
No.
was, you know, just
It's yeah, it's too bad. I don't but I'm laughing, but I don't want to imply that I
oh,
don't
we laughed at the
understand.
time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
But
Okay.
no, no. But I mean, it was it's similar in that way. Like here's this guy, the wife has left him. He's drinking. He set up the stuff, and he's going to plug it in. And it was plugging it in. It wasn't about to demonstrate that because it's a yard sale more or less, right? Like he's selling the stuff. But it will. That's not really why it's set up like that. It's set
Yeah,
up.
he never really. There's no sign that says that's it. That's another question: is did he in fact plan to sell? Like, it's not really clear what he was thinking. It doesn't say.
No, it
He
isn't.
didn't
Except he
have a
sits on the
sign that
bed and
said
he's
yard.
left
And in
flat
fact,
on
he
the
goes
bed.
off and gets drunk somewhere and blows it. He's not even there when they get there.
Right,
If
right.
like as we're about to discover. So we should get back in the story. But
Okay.
so let me see.
Well, so they pulled
Let
into the
me
driveway.
let's see where we were. The boy pulled into the driveway and stopped in front of the kitchen table.
Right.
You want to just pick it up
Yeah.
from
So
there?
my version, I'll read this whole, it's a small paragraph, and it's interesting because there is a spot there that I think is critical. So, or interesting. They got out of the car and began to examine things. The girl touched the muslin cloth. The boy plugged in the blender and turned the dial to mince, of all uppercase MINCE,
Yeah, I
mince.
really like that.
Yeah, me too.
But Carver wrote that, right? The
He
mince
did too.
part.
I mean, yes.
Okay.
She picked up the chafing dish. He turned on the television set and made careful adjustments. He sat down on the sofa to watch. He lit a cigarette, looked around, and flipped the match into the grass. The girl sat on the bed. She pushed off her shoes and lay back. She could see the evening
All right.
star.
Good. Let me stop you there
Yeah.
because I have a couple questions for you. The flipped the match into the grass and then the girl sat on the bed. Is there a paragraph break there in your version, or did Lish add that? Because he lit a
There,
cigarette.
Lish added that.
Lish had okay. So he lit. Speaking of the boy, he lit a cigarette, looked around, flipped the match into the grass. Now you get a little space between
Yes.
paragraphs,
Yep.
and then it's the girl sat on the bed. And I will say this: there were some subtle little adjustments in there that I didn't mention that you probably saw, which is they use ing words instead of past tense words.
Yeah,
Like
like the girl
you said,
picking
the
up.
boy
Oh, yeah.
plugged in the blender and turned the dial. Is that right?
Yes, yes, and in the Carver version, I mean the Lish version, the girl picking up the chafing dish,
Yeah,
the boy turning on the television
yeah.
set.
Now certainly a subtle adjustment, but I mean the point is he thought it was important, and I have to say I don't think it's bad to do it.
No, I think it's I pulled that out. I mean, I marked that as an interesting edit
Yeah,
because I think the motion of it, she is just interesting. It's not doesn't change the story, doesn't change
yeah.
really
It
the
doesn't
atmosphere,
really, but
but you can see her, the girl picking up a chafing dish, the boy
yeah,
turning on the television set.
yeah.
and making little adjustments is different from she picked up the chafing dish, she
Yeah,
turned on
it
the
is
plate.
slightly
That
different.
movement.
It feels like she picked up, he did this, he did that in past tense. It 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 feels to me like it humanizes them slightly. And putting the
And also, it's
ing,
they're discovering this scene. They're like entering into this and like
yeah.
and exploring it. You know, so
Yeah.
Ian, the girl
And
picking
but
up.
having now this is a very subtle, perhaps trivial point, but I think the ing word makes it seem more like a thing that's almost mechanical that's happening as opposed to organic where people are doing concrete actions. That might seem a little bit inside baseball, my point there. But I mean, I think it's fair to say that, I mean, Lish did change that. He must have had some reason, and that
I,
seems like
I think it's that. Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but I think
no,
that, it's about like the girl picking up the you can see her. It's like you can see the movement of it. You can see her as opposed to she picked up the chafing dish. You know, did that happen yesterday or something? Like it's not. You
yeah,
don't
that's a
see the
good point.
movement.
It seems less immediate because it's past
And
tense,
it
maybe.
seems less like you can something about because she there this is a weird scene that they just drove up on. You can imagine them walking around and going like kind of like exploring it, like what is
Yeah,
this? And like and the
right.
girl picking
Yeah,
up
they
the
don't.
chafing dish, you that's now you can
Yeah.
see her doing it.
Well, what I like is the implication. This is another one of those things that's never mentioned, which I think we give Carver a point for. You never really get the impression that they think this is weird, or
Uh
barely. They mostly just kind of accept it. They don't really.
it's interesting. Yeah. Later she seems to later she well at the end when she's trying to convey to her friends and then can't seem to put the
Yeah,
words together,
yeah,
she seems to think it's weird then, but no, they're not
yes.
afraid or
No, that's
anything.
right.
They're like it's kind of
She.
whimsical and fun for
I
them.
think at the time they just went with it,
They and or seem to be having fun with it.
and they are seeming to be having fun. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so what have we got here? Um, oh,
But
okay. Here's an important one. What did you say? The girl sat on the bed. What happens
the
in your
girl sat
version?
on the bed. She pushed off her shoes. She could see the evening star.
Okay, this is another key Lish idea, I think, because the
Definitely
Lish version is she thought she could see a star. See, I
critical.
really like that because I think he felt, and I'm benefiting again from hindsight here because I read somewhere that Lish felt that with Carver, I think he may have said this to somebody. He had to be careful, or he had to be vigilant for Carver's tendency to be overly sentimental, which I
Oh,
think is a thing that if you read enough Carver, yes, there's plenty, especially in the original versions. There's a lot of sentimental stuff, and I think that thing about the star. Somehow, what was it? The evening star? What was it he
well,
said?
she could see the evening
She could see
star
the
as
evening
opposed to
star.
she
So,
thought she could see a star.
yeah, well, yeah, okay. So so there's two differences. One is she
Yeah,
thought she could. That's that's the
that's
one
the
I
one
have. She
spoke
thought
to
she
me.
could see a star. That's both more vague and less romantic, I think. The
And
evening
also
star, that sounds
she's
romantic.
now and it still evokes that like that same thing about when that discovering and chafing or she's opening and they're exploring the space. She thought it's still mysterious. She thought she could see a star.
Yeah.
Like you can see that she's actively, is that a star?
Yeah.
As opposed to
She
she could
doesn't
see the evening
it
stars. She's too
yeah.
confident there.
It make she could see the evening star makes it sound like she knew it was the evening star.
She's too confident. She's
Too
too ahead.
confident. Right, right. It's better to have her not it's better to have her clueless. That's
At
the
least on
version that we've
wheels,
come
right?
to.
Not at least like still in that discovery
Yeah,
mystery place.
she's wondering. She doesn't really completely know what's going on, and
You're
she
right.
isn't even drunk yet. But she's already
Right,
a little
right,
confused.
right. But it's too easy for her. She could see the evening star.
Yeah,
She
right,
thought
right.
she
It's a
could see
little
a
too
star.
easy. It gives her
You
too
know,
much credit for
there's
being.
too much, there's fewer, less mystery.
Yeah,
And really the mystery, and as we are going to see shortly, that mystery is very important to the Lish version and Lish clearly, as you mentioned in him generally, like, right? You said that before.
yeah. He talked about that a lot. That he thought mystery was important, and basically, he didn't like it when what he referred to it different ways in different interviews because he talked about this endlessly for 40 years. So he said it many different ways, but he said it's not so urgent to bring in the news report or something. He referred to the news, and for him, the news was shorthand for information about, he lived on Rodeo Drive and he had a
Uh,
house, and but like Lish didn't want all that. He didn't need you to put that in. He felt that it ruined it. Like it detracted from the mystery. It made it less interesting. And I think generally this is true of Carver. I don't know that we would have articulated this at the time. I mean, my guess is a lot of us probably thought Carver was cool because they were drinking the whole time. I would imagine that being young and naive, I probably thought part of why it was great was because they were always drinking. But
no, I
but
don't know. I always liked that mystery, that weirdness, and that things
well,
were dark a little bit.
see, this is the thing: is that the drinking part of it aside, I'm calling myself out for that. I think partly I liked it for that reason, but I also think that we had some sense that there was some sense that you could project your own idea of what it meant. Like most of the time, I think Carver stories. I haven't read a ton of them recently, but what I generally remember was that they often used this kind of technique that where you didn't where all the questions weren't answered. I mean, even in some of the Carver stories where there's one particular one which you may have read years ago called which is the title story, what we talk about when we talk about love, and that is a story about two couples drinking a lot and sitting at a kitchen table and having a long evening of conversation, and they start talking about fucked up relationships they've had in the past, and they're getting trashed on gin. And anyway, the reason I bring it up is that in even in that story where a lot of backstory is revealed because it's got the flashback, like a bunch of the story is them talking about her past, and her friends are uncomfortable hearing these painful details, and it leads to a little bit of a fight between the one of the couples, and one husband and wife are mad because he remembers the older events differently, and they argue about it a little bit. It gets a little ugly, and the point I'm getting at is that even in Carver's version, where Lish cut a ton out of that one. I forget how much, but that was one of the ones where he cut like half of it, so a lot. And even in the Carver version, you still don't completely understand what happened in the past, even though he gives you way more than Lish. It's still a strange story that is told, and it's not told all in one place. And you kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say is that even in a packed story like that was probably longer than it needed to be, Carver still had some vagueness. So
Mhm.
so so I don't
Oh,
think Carver was completely unaware of the value of that. I suspect he was conflicted about it.
oh, yeah. I guess that's probably true. It's not fair to say he just didn't miss the mark or anything. He was probably conflicted about.
I
That's
think
how I
that,
felt actually,
yeah.
because that's
I,
what the character of the man as gets developed later is so much different in those stories. He definitely had his way. This it wasn't a mistake that he wanted to do it that way. But
yeah.
it feels like Lish said, it feels like, as you and I discussed, even like when we were talking about doing this, with Lish, I feel like Lish said, look, we have 3 pages of story here. This is where we're going. And
Yeah.
and was a little bit more, I'm going to drive these points home. That's
Yeah.
it,
Right.
and
And
or
again,
this
again we
is the
have to
atmosphere I'm going to maintain.
and again we have to mention that Carver did not object to this rewrite at all,
Right, right,
which
right.
which which give which I think gives you a little bit of an argument for maybe he was conflicted and maybe thought, okay, Lish decided to lean into that. Okay, I can live with it.
Yeah, fair.
You know,
Right,
that's
right,
that's
right,
something like that is probably what
right.
happened. Okay, where
So
are
now
we
we
now?
go into a pretty substantial part, I think. Well, a good amount that where there's no real change. So I'll just read this
Yeah,
real
yeah,
quick.
it goes for a while without any edits.
Right. So, but I mean, is it worth still worth kind of reading? This is a short story, right?
Well, I would say, let's see, do I? I'm not sure I can tell from this how long we've gone. I suspect we've already talked for a very long time, and we
We've
we are
talked.
like
Yeah, we have
a
talked for a
couple
little bit. Well,
pages into the
I
story. So
I will
here's
say
I'm gonna
that
make
I'm. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna make an executive decision. let's just say we don't have to read every single thing. When there isn't an edit for a while, we can probably skip over some
Okay, so but for the listeners, the
of
few that are
it.
left,
We'll give them like an overview so they know what's going on. But
right?
yeah,
So that basically they're continuing to explore the space. The girl lays down on the bed. She invites the guy over, the boy, to come and try out the bed, and they've and says come out and try out the bed because they're shopping here for stuff. I will say, Carl, I might have a problem. I might have to move spaces and plug this laptop in, but I can we manage that? Can we pause or something?
yeah, I can just pause. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
Just
all
keep
right,
going,
all right. So I'll let you know.
we'll
I'll
put a
have
pause in if we
it
need it.
won't happen. It won't. I'll know.
Okay.
Um, anyway, so she basically, they have this kind of like playful time where they're trying out the bed and bouncing on the bed and comparing how the bed feels to each of them.
Right. And again, the man's not quite in the
The
story
band's
yet.
not even home yet. Well,
Well, okay. The very beginning is he's looking out the window. Okay. You know what? Okay. You're pointing, so I think we're both thinking the
well,
same
that's
thing
coming up.
here. I
So,
think
but
what we're
it's
both
important.
thinking is
Oh,
that
sorry.
that the very beginning. If I go back to the top,
Yeah, he's looking
he's
out the
in the
window.
kitchen. He's pouring a drink. He's looking out the window, and then that's it for him for a minute. Then
Yeah,
it
for a
goes
while.
to the young kids,
Right.
and in the original version, uh, there's a lot more detail about where the man was before, like early, and we'll get to that. I think in a moment that comes up.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, but as it stands now, you begin the story with him, and then it's off him. Like the camera is off him for a
It's off
while.
him, and I guess the time is even changed because it's not giving. I guess we're going to find out. He's been somewhere else and comes upon them
Yeah,
when they're in
right,
the yard.
right.
So he has gone somewhere else.
Yeah, right, right. The chronology
That happened the day
is
before or
yeah.
something.
Lish essentially just cut that out, but we'll get to that in a moment. We'll
Okay.
see that.
But
So
anyway, for the next interesting edit for me, so they're trying out this bed. They're both laying on the bed. She turned in the Carver version, she turned on her side and put her arm around his neck. In the
yeah,
in the Lish version, she turned on her side and put her hand to his face.
yeah, that's an interesting difference. I mean, I think that is different
It is different. Yeah, she's more
putting
tender.
a hand around a neck, that's like really hugging someone, whereas the face thing seems odder, like a stranger choice to make,
Put her
maybe.
hand, well, to me, I again, because later, well, not even later. So, okay, I'm going to read a few more lines.
Go ahead.
She turned on her side, put her hand around his neck. Kiss me, she said. Let's get up, he said. Kiss me, honey, she said. She closed her eyes. She held him. He had to prise her fingers loose.
This
And
is
then
all the Carver version. This is
that's the
stuff.
Carver version. In the Lish
So
version,
Lish cut all that or most of it.
well, he changed it. He goes, in the Lish version, so remember, she said, kiss me, honey.
Yeah.
Uh, she closed her eyes. She held him. He had to prise her fingers loose, right? And then in the Lish version, she turned on her side. She put her hand to his face. Kiss me, she said. Let's get up, he said. Kiss me, she said. She closed her eyes. She held him. He said, I'll see if anybody's home.
And
And
then
that's it. Like he didn't have
oh,
to
okay.
tear
And
away.
then Lish adds, but he just sat up and stayed where he was, making believe he was watching the television. That's all Lish, right?
That is all Lish. Yeah, that a little bit later. See, it's a little tough because now Lish the paragraphs are loose, they're not dense, but he moves some things around. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's just I wanted to stop for a second. She
Sure.
feels in the Carver version, she feels much more attached to him, to the boy.
Yes.
Kiss me, honey. He had to
Yeah.
prise her fingers loose. In the
Mm-hmm.
Lish version, her hand to his face, it's tender. It's not like, you know,
Yeah. It's less affectionate,
it's
arguably.
less affection.
Yeah.
Kiss me is one
Sure.
word. Let's get up. Kiss me, she said. She closed her eyes. She held him. It just feels a little less. It feels like less secure.
Yeah. It feels to me like Carver didn't quite make up his mind which way he was going, and Lish made up his mind for him.
As we said,
Yeah, right, right, and
I think
that's
that's
but
what we
that's an
meant. Yeah.
example of it. Like that was the idea of them being too affectionate. Lish was not having that.
I think it was too safe.
It didn't. It was too safe, and I like to think of it this way. It just doesn't work. Maybe that's a little bit
It also, yeah, you're right.
judgmental,
But
but
beyond that, you're right. It also doesn't work. I don't want to know about she had to prise her fingers loose. Now
yeah,
I'm like down that road. I,
it doesn't make you want to read more. Some of the things Carver did, now again, it's the benefit of hindsight, as I keep saying, but some of the things Carver had in just screw up what's going on. Like you're in the Lish version, you're always riveted. There's never a slack
yeah.
moment. But with Carver, adding that, like, what does it mean that she hugged? I don't understand what he.
Not only what does it mean, you're right. The fact that you have to stop and use brain cells to go, what does
Yeah,
it mean? You're
right.
gone. You're off the path now.
Yeah. This is. I imagine if Lish were here, he would agree that the idea. I like what you said. You have to stop and use brain cells. You're not supposed to stop
No,
and use brain cells.
not
Like
there.
that's what. Like he wanted you to just be absolutely, under the spell of the story
Of this line, of this
of
where
this
you're
line.
going.
Yeah, right. And so he just, um, yeah, I think that's another, and again, a very subtle example of the difference. Now, also, maybe you said this already. I have, uh, I have this in the final version, but maybe is this right? Where she says, "Come here, Jack. Try this bed." Did Lish
Oh,
leave in one of the
oh, I may have
names?
missed that. Hold on.
I
Is
can
that
I'm
further up?
I can check the
Come
original and
here,
just to make
Jack.
sure.
Yeah, that what is that in the Lish version? Come here, Jack.
Well, according to this, but I'm gonna check my other version just to double check.
In oh, okay. I have it in both versions. Come here, Jack. I didn't actually pay attention to that,
Yeah,
but
it
I
could
have it
it
in both
it
versions.
could be. I'm gonna find out in a second. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, wait. This I'm looking at the wrong version. I'm looking at beginners. Hang on. Okay, one moment. Yeah, in our defense, this is an example of just how complicated. There's so many.
Well, it's tough, because the edits are it's about specific words. It's about the location in the story in the paragraph of
Yeah,
the.
there's a lot going on. But that's why this is good. I mean, I want to stop a minute and just say why we're doing this. I mean, because maybe we rushed in and didn't explain. I think that anyone who's interested in writing, I think should be interested in this sort of discussion. That's one thing. But maybe more to the point, because how many people? Everybody on there's like 3 million people on Substack that say they're writers. Are they all writers? Debatable. But my feeling is, if you're a writer, you'd be interested in this discussion. Like you might feel that some of our, maybe we go too far, maybe we make too much of a fuss over certain things. But I would imagine almost anyone would have to see those two versions and realize they're very different,
Well,
even
yeah,
though a lot of the stuff is intact. And so that's leading up. Okay, all of that babbling is leading up to this. Lish did keep that one jack in.
he did.
Apparently, I just double checked. It's
He
weird.
did.
I can't. Is it an oversight? I don't know.
Well, for me, that to be honest, okay, so I missed that. But to be honest, the name of the boy is less important than the name of the man.
I do agree with that. Fair enough.
You know,
Yeah, but
and or the lack of the name of
That
the man.
seems like another thing where I don't see the logic of keeping it in. Like, it seems inconsistent with what Lish was doing. But
It
again,
is. It is.
but
But
maybe with all the editing, we can.
maybe he was tired.
Maybe he's tired.
It's all right.
He was a very small man. Perhaps he hadn't eaten enough in his blood. I mean, who knows? We
Right.
don't
Right.
know.
Um.
But
So anyway,
okay.
um, I don't know. Should we go on?
Yes, I'm going
I
back.
thought
Okay, sure.
to me
So
it was
we're
significant that I'll just stop for a second
sure.
up to where we are now, and that interaction on the bed. To me, it was significant that in the Carver version, she's very much more attached to the guy than in the Lish version.
I think that's
I mean,
fair.
she's
Yeah,
affectionate, but she's not. He doesn't have to prize himself away from her.
she's more affectionate in general in the Carver version.
Yeah,
And then you have this thing. The boy laughed, but for no good reason. For no good reason, he switched the reading lamp on. Is that different from what you've got there?
yeah. Well, he goes. Just for a moment, though, we missed something. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
she
okay,
closed
okay.
her eyes. She held him. He had to prise her fingers loose. Then he said, "I'll see if anybody's home." Oh, then because in my version or the Carver version, he said, "I'll see if anybody's home," but he
Yeah.
just sat up. in the Lish version, he said, "I'll see if anybody's home," but he sat up and stayed where he was, making believe he was watching the television.
Yeah, that's Lish, right? Lish
That's
wrote that. Carver
yeah,
didn't write that.
that's Lish.
That sentence.
And then, so that's just a little, I don't know, that's not that significant, but I don't, it's an interesting that he did
Yeah.
change it. I don't know.
Well, here's what I think about it, and again, maybe I'm reading into it, but it seems to me making believe he was watching
Oh,
the television, that's part of that contributes to the weirdness. I think the idea that they're actually acting as if it's actually their house. Like think about it. Let's
yeah.
let,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
just say.
They're
I
like
mean, I
playing
mean,
house,
okay,
right?
we accept the idea that the man's behavior is strange, but we can understand it. Like you told your story about your dad. We accept that that sort of behavior makes a kind of sense, even if it seems weird
Yeah.
to us. But this other thing where he's pretending to watch TV, that is weird. What's the logic of that? Who would do that? It's
I don't know.
strange.
Hey, listen, can we just pause? Can you pause for
Yeah.
1 second?
Okay.
All right.
For people listening to this, we are taking a pause and then we will come back very soon.
Okay. All right. Just give me a sec. I can still see you, right? You're just going to pause recording, Carl?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to figure. Oh, pause record.
All right. Hey, I'm back.
Okay, we are back, and I just want to point out that we essentially used a Lish-like edit on the video. I changed my shirt because I didn't think the sweatshirt was mysterious enough. You've put on a mysterious hat, I see.
I did because my head was
It
mysteriously
was
cold.
mysteriously cold, right? Exactly. Okay, so and a bunch of people came in during the break, and we had a chat with a bunch of other people, and I just cut them out. They
Oh,
they
yeah.
they didn't.
They brought nothing to it.
It's the two of us. It's more minimal this podcast. Okay, so where are we now? We I feel like we're in danger of. I mean, it might not be the worst idea to speed it up a little. I think we have a lot of stuff coming out up where we don't have to read every single bit of it.
Okay. Are we on it? Because it's,
We are on.
you know, we can go down to, okay. So if you want, it's kind of more of the same there with they are bouncing around the bed. But I think the most significant thing is coming up where the man comes on the scene.
Yeah,
Would you
yeah,
agree?
yeah. I mean, we've talked endlessly, and that's like the meat of the story. We're not even
All
there
right.
yet, so we're getting there pretty soon, though.
Well, the edits up to that point, beyond what we already mentioned, I don't think are that significant. I mean, they maintain more of what we talked about. That to me, the fact that there is this kind of implied tenuousness to their relationship, or maybe not tenuousness, but vulnerability,
Sure.
even
Yeah.
that maybe they're not aware of because they're
Yeah,
innocent.
they're almost certainly not aware of it.
They're not. They're innocent, but but the man certainly is. Um, and I don't know if that's about it, really.
Yeah, I think from this point we don't have to dig into every single. A lot of the stuff coming up will be similar to things we've already
Yeah.
talked about. I think.
So
Fair enough.
I would go right to the where the man comes in.
Okay, the man comes in. You want to just start reading there?
So yeah, so in the Carver version, it says Max came down the sidewalk with a sack from the market. I'm going to read this whole paragraph because it's
Go ahead.
dramatic. Hold on, I'm going to scroll up here. Max came down the sidewalk with a sack from the market. He had sandwiches, beer, and whiskey. He had continued to drink through the afternoon and had reached a place where now the drinking seemed to begin to sober him. But there were gaps. He had stopped at the bar next to the market. He had listened to a song on the jukebox, and somehow it had gotten dark before he recalled the things in the yard.
And that's all just in Carver, not in Lish.
That's all just in Carver's version. And most critically, I don't know, do you want to take it from there? Do you want to read the
No,
next?
say what you want to
Well,
say.
most critically, to me, well, two things are critical. In the Lish version, I'll read that paragraph. So remember, the Carver version, Max came down the sidewalk. We learned a lot about what Max had been doing. He'd been drinking
Yeah.
all day. He'd been in this bar. He listened to a jukebox. He kind of lost track of time. So in the Lish version, the man came down the sidewalk
It's
with a
not
sack.
Max anymore.
Right.
We
With a
never
sack.
get we never the name Max is completely gone from the story. I think
Yes, forever.
forever. Jack is the one that might even be the one time the name Jack comes in. I'm not
I
sure.
think so. No, I think he says her name. I think the boy says her name.
Oh, does he? Okay.
They're like drilling down on do they want this desk or TV or something.
Okay, so there's a little bit of the names with them, but
Yeah,
for the
but
most
never the
part, their
name.
names are gone. Like they
Yeah,
left it in
for
a
the most
little
part,
bit.
everybody's name was gone in both versions. To be
Yeah,
fair,
but Max is totally gone. We never
Max is
know
totally gone, and that's very significant to me.
because he's the main character.
He is, and also that mysterious. If I could say, as we talked of anyway. Okay, just a sec. So in the Carver version, Max came down the sidewalk. We learned that he had been drinking all day and at this bar,
Right,
and then listened to the jukebox.
right,
And if you're bored by now, that's the point. Like that's boy, you know what do I want? I don't
well,
really
yeah,
need that
yeah.
information. I don't need to know.
This is an interesting point because on the one hand, Carver being, I think this is fair to say, one of the best writers on drunkenness. Like he's particularly good at writing about how alcohol affects your perception. I can't I don't know that I've ever read a short story writer that was better at that. Like there's a little bit in Faulkner. I remember there's a passage in Faulkner. I think it's in Sanctuary where I remember reading and thinking, "Damn, he absolutely nailed." Like it's so weird that the way time, the way your perception of time gets all fuzzy and everything. Faulkner was good at that in this one book, but Carver I think returns to it again and again. It's one of
Mhm.
his thing. Like he's just good at describing it. So the point I'm getting at is his description there. If you take that out of the story and you just look at it by itself, it's good. I think
Oh yeah.
because it's very inventive and it's very accurate. Like what does he say? You drink more and it makes you sober or something. What did he say?
He says he had continued to drink the afternoon and had reached a place where now the drinking seemed to begin to sober him, which does happen or appears to happen to the drinker.
Right. You wouldn't have any experience with that. You've heard about it.
Many's the drinker who thinks they're sober.
Yes. Yeah, see that's in other words, I think as a piece of writing about drunkenness, I think that's very good writing.
Right,
But I
right,
think but because of the idea of not having we don't want too many details about him, it's better to not get it.
right. Well,
That's the
indeed.
point.
So in Lish's version, that whole paragraph about okay, so Lish's version, the man came down the sidewalk with a sack from the market. He had
Hmm.
sandwiches, beer, and whiskey. He saw the car in the driveway and the girl on the bed. That's all you get.
Yeah,
Later,
it's
then
not
it
much.
no, and that's in fact, he saw the car in the driveway and the girl in the bed are in both versions. That whole paragraph, Max came down the sidewalk and then he continued to drink and he listened to the jukebox and everything. In Lish's version, it's the man came down the sidewalk with the sack from the market. He had sandwiches, beer, and whiskey. That's it.
Yeah. Well, there's he saw the car in the driveway and the girl in
Yeah,
the
but
bed.
that's in both versions.
Okay, right. You're saying okay. I get what you're saying.
So you don't hear anything about where the guy had been, that he had been drinking all day,
No,
that he
none of
went to
that.
the
It's all gone.
jukebox, or any of that.
Yeah. So what that means is you never get the man away from the front yard except in that one moment where he's watching through the window.
When he's walking up the sidewalk.
Well, okay, so walking up the sidewalk and also the very beginning, he looks through the window. But for the most part, he's not in the story at all except when he's with them. That's the point I'm
Yeah,
getting at.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
For the most part, with those
Right,
two small exceptions.
right.
Mostly he only exists in the story. I want to belabor this point for a minute because I think this is important. When you read a story, that story is like a closed system. It's a little universe that the writer creates, and so anything they leave out, you don't know it. Like I wouldn't have no reason to guess anything about what happened to him before he walks in. In the Lish version, I mean, you could. It's not
No, I wouldn't have thought to wonder any that.
like he's been drinking because I think at the very beginning he had poured another drink. I think there's a sense that he's been drinking, but this is significant. We sense that he's been drinking, but it's not explicitly point. It's more implied, and I think that's better.
It is better. And well, I mean, I think just that it maintains the whole mystery of that guy. And I don't know, for me, I have this feeling like the guy is like it not in necessarily a good way, but has this wisdom about him, has this wisdom about him, but the wisdom for me isn't like so great. Like it's the wisdom about how shitty life can be.
Right.
The
It's
wisdom
the
about
wisdom of a guy who's
just
fucked up and accepts like he's wise in the sense that he's self-aware in a sense, but
used
Yeah,
like
like to call it
jaded.
wisdom is even a little. It's even a little generous.
Right, but it's he's jaded perhaps,
He's
or
been around. Put it that way.
he's been around, right?
Yeah.
And he just has this like I don't get in the Lish version, I don't get the feeling that the guy is really that sad. I
No, not really.
you
No.
know in the but the thing in the Carver version, he really seems adrift and lost, and even
Yeah.
later in the story in the Carver version, he's like more tender and he's a little bit like
Yeah. I think
wondering.
you're
And
right.
there's an important line where he goes in the Carver version, he's like, "Do you think you want to drink?" And then in the Lish version, it's, "You guys want to drink."
Right.
It's
That's right. I
more,
remember that. Yeah.
it's really more. He's more confident. He's
Yeah.
more. It may be this depressing, horrible space that's his happy space. And like I say, it's probably not his first divorce. I
Right.
think
All of that makes sense to me, and I like that he. It's okay. When Let me get back to the point I was making, and then get into this. The point is that whatever you feel about a story is based to a large extent on what you know. And I think one of Lish's main beliefs is that it's more emotionally involving if you don't have it all spelled out for you. Like whatever you, okay, so when you're reading the Lish version and you're speculating a little bit about what happened, that's compelling because you have to guess because it's not spelled out. So it makes it more interesting. You're
and
more
you're
engaged
compelled to
because
get.
you're like you have to connect the dots. And a big this is here's an aside, but I think it's significant. Um, I read a lot of things on Substack that are either written by professional writers or people that are at least in the publishing industry a little bit and have some understanding about trends that are going on. And I don't know anything about that. That's the point. I just read stuff I want to read. I don't
Uh-huh.
understand what's going on in the outside world very much as far as what people are reading and not reading. But I read these articles sometimes to get some idea. And what they said was, I think I've seen this more than once, that Sally Rooney, have you heard of her? That the author Sally Rooney?
No, maybe. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, it doesn't matter. I mean, tons of people watching this will be appalled that you haven't heard of her, but I'm not. I'm not judging you because I read a little bit and didn't like it, and when I say it, I read a little bit of one of her books, but the that's not really the point of why I'm bringing it up. The reason I'm bringing her up is that I believe she said in an interview that there I can't recall now if she said there was pressure from the publisher or the editor or if she just believed this. I don't recall now whether she was. I can't recall whether she was suggesting that she was pressured in this way or whether it was just a thing that she believed. But what she was saying is somebody was asking her in an interview, "Why did you explain all that?" And she said, "Because these days, I'm I'm not. This is not an exact quote, but because these days people have to have some things explained to them." I'm not sure she said it in quite that obvious way, but that was what I came away with. Was she was saying, "Look, if you don't explain some stuff, a lot of today's readers just won't understand." And I looked at that and it was
That's
very dispiriting.
yeah,
Like, does that mean they could read this story? Why don't you dance and not understand? Like, I'm not saying that we absolutely understand every single thing that was supposed to be
no.
conveyed, but but the point is we're really deep into it. We're interested in trying to figure out. That's why we're having this conversation because it's
And we're
fascinating.
also finding the clues. Like to me, I can see them. I don't know.
Yeah, we're
Just
finding
like
the
with all
clues.
writing, not all, but a lot of writing, there can be multiple themes and multiple symbolism or symbols, right? And there can be but you can and many times I'll see a movie or I'll read a story and I'll say that's a symbol. I don't know what it is, but that's definitely a symbol. There's something
Yeah,
there.
right. There will be
Max
some
von
tell.
Sydow, like he's doing that thing because like if you watch a Bergman movie, it's all symbolism. Maybe you don't know, maybe you don't get it, but definitely
Yeah,
you can
you know something's going on.
something's going on and he's trying to tell you something.
Yeah, a funny example of this because I'm not a fan of symbolism generally, but there are examples of it in famous books where it's a book that I love. Like for example, The Great Gatsby. I'm assuming you read that at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember that they had the thing about the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, it was this big sign, like a physical sign. Do you remember this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and and I'm looking at that now. Not that this is my original observation, but I look at that now and think, come on, could you be more ham-fisted with the like the idea
Right,
that the eyes are watching the events?
right, right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I love that book, but that is a pretty shameless example of
Clara read
obviously.
that book. She hated it.
Who
Interestingly, and
did?
Clara reads a lot. My daughter, she read that book and she was like, "It's not." I'm telling you, and Clara does not need stuff explained to her.
Okay,
But
so yeah,
that is not that book. I She was like, "I don't get it." I don't, and she reads a lot,
okay.
but she didn't. It didn't talk to her. I think it.
Well,
You know,
I will say
it
this for what it's worth,
get
because
you.
that was just an aside. So I will briefly say this: I have, I have a friend who's an English teacher, and she told me that she didn't think Fitzgerald was good and thought he was way overrated.
Oh
And
yeah,
then I have since I was shocked by that because I'm always very naive. Like when I read The Great Gatsby, it just seemed to me to be one of the most entertaining books we were ever forced to read. I remember thinking, man, this is so much more entertaining than any number of other books they made us read. That one just seemed fun, and seems to zip along. Like it's one of my favorite books, and yet there are lots of people who don't like it. I find,
Mhm.
and it may be that that's. I think there's a thing that sometimes things are generational. Like there was probably a
Definitely.
time when I remember being told when I was young by this guy who was older than us. He literally felt it was the greatest American novel, and I
The Great
thought, wow,
Gatsby.
that's high praise. But I mean, I did like it a lot, and I accepted that. But I don't think people are. I don't think that's the current thinking out there. I've
No,
seen a lot of people saying, The Great Gatsby's really pretty silly. It's really superficial. I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna litigate it here, but I'm just gonna point out that 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 Clara is not the only person who was
no.
not seduced by it. Like she's there are a lot of people I find that don't like it. I don't get it myself, but I think the lesson here is basically that everybody doesn't respond to the same. Like even I mean, plenty of times I meet people who are way more well read than I am, and they still hate certain books. Where I'm thinking, how is it you don't like that? I don't get it.
Dude,
It
I got
happens.
no, I have lost it, man. I get we this is a very short aside. I saw the new Spike Lee movie. I thought it was terrible. I thought it was no business. There wasn't a frame in that movie that was worth filming. I thought it was
That's pretty
horrible.
harsh.
And it was horrible. I
Well,
thought
I'm,
it was
I'm not. I'm just
self-indulgent. And I maybe if one frame, okay, that is harsh. But
okay. All
but
right.
I thought it was
You'll allow
self-indulgent.
that there's at least one good frame in the film.
Right.
You're willing to go that far.
Self-indulgent. It really wasn't very good.
Yeah.
The story was badly told. The character development was terrible. The story was, as you and I have discussed in screenwriting, where if you have to stop and go, "Hey, and by the way, do you remember this happened yesterday?" And here I'm going to have this conversation that's going to explain
Yeah.
everything that happened
Right. It's
yesterday.
terrible.
It was full of that.
Yeah.
And then it had this
Really
dumb
weird.
Scooby-Doo ending that was just like patched together. It was like he wanted to say, "Okay, I'm bored now. I'm done filming, and I'm done. And
Wow.
here's this stupid ending." And it was terrible. And he hung it on. It was supposed, it's a homage to Kurosawa, and it's
Mm,
supposed to be like, And when you look at the original movie, it is similar in its storyline, but come on, it was just terrible, and
yeah.
I hated it. And the guy I went with, a friend of mine, we're arguing. This is like a month later. We saw it. I don't know, maybe 3 weeks later. He's still, every time I see him, he's like, he won't let up about how I
Yeah.
disagree and that he really liked the movie. And I'm like, dude, can you let it go? Because,
He's
but
upset that you didn't like it. I mean,
yeah, he can't accept that I didn't like it.
yeah.
Or, I mean,
Well,
it's just a fun, argument that we
right.
have.
It's like a joke, a running
But,
joke.
but it was terrible. And that's an example of, like, you just run across things with people who just, like, I sometimes I'm embarrassed, or I don't know. I went to see Les Miserables with bunch of friends of mine years ago. I hated it. We walked away and they were all raving about it. And we're walking down the street and they're like, they wanted me to say how much I liked the thing. And I just was like, please, can I just not say anything? Because I know I'm going to be hated. So
Right.
I just thought, I'm just not going to say anything. Finally, I said, it just didn't talk to me. And that was enough. I was
They
under
accepted that.
no, then I was under attack.
Oh, you're saying that was enough for them to bring out the big weapons.
That was, if I didn't say it was the best, it was the best moment of my
Right,
entire
right.
life.
That tears it.
But it was, I hated it. And
Yeah.
I hated it was part the production. I actually don't even like the show, but but whatever. But it's like, no, you can't. That's an aside, but it's hard. Things just again, like the story, it means a lot to me. It may mean something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be magnanimous about it. Every time somebody doesn't like something I like, it doesn't mean they're an idiot.
No, no, I
I
don't
mean,
say no, no.
I used to think it meant that, but
I'm
I've
not
grown up
cracking on my
slightly.
friend for liking it. I'm just want to be confident that I didn't like it, and then he won't.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that those people won't let you go. Like you have to say you liked it.
Yes, there is.
You know?
It does. I would guess this is very much a tangent town kind of tangent, but I would guess that people that like something are more likely to be argumentative about it than a person who doesn't like it. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I don't want to make too much of a generalization, but what I'm saying is a person who likes it has something invested in it, where the person who hates it is not automatically invested. It might just be kind of a,
Because the
you know,
person who likes it doesn't want to admit that they may have been duped.
right. They don't want to admit that. That's
Right.
exactly right. Like when I think about Phil Collins, I don't like Phil Collins music, but I don't have a lot invested in that. It's just a
No.
thing that I feel. I don't want to argue all day about Phil Collins. I would not want to do that any more than I would want to listen to him. Whereas with the Spike Lee thing, I mean, I'll just say this, but this wasn't really your point about your point is that people feel differently. Okay, that's a
No.
good point. But I just want to say about Spike Lee before we get back into the Carver thing, uh, that we, you and I guess, were among the young people that saw She's Gotta Have It when it was
Oh, those are great movies.
right. She's Gotta Have It, and the thing is, I'm not speaking for you, but what I recall is that we all thought Spike Lee was an incredible genius, and we were
Right.
all excited about him. And then his second movie I thought was bad. I don't know if you saw that, but
Which one was that? Jungle
School
Fever?
Days.
What?
School Days.
School Days, but School Days had some bright points.
It had its moments. It had
Yeah.
one scene I really liked, but I didn't like the movie. I found it confusing and weirdly edited in a way that I didn't understand. I mean, and
Yeah, he was
that leads
still
me
young
to a
though.
point about.
I'm more forgiving of that movie.
Well, okay. I mean, that ultimately, my point is not that that movie was a terrible, terrible piece of junk, but my point is that I think Spike Lee began to suggest in that film that he wasn't like an Orson Welles, where if you like Orson Welles, it's pretty much all great. Like in other words, I started doubting my conviction about Spike Lee in the second film, and then we saw Do the Right Thing, and then we were all excited about that one again.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of like was okay. Forget about School Days. This movie's a masterpiece. That was our feeling at the time.
Mhm.
But then after that, I
Yeah,
it,
he's
it
done so
I
much.
guess my feeling is generally I think of him as a guy. We didn't prepare for this discussion, so this is going to sound glib, and people can dismiss it if they want. But in my opinion, Spike Lee was a hugely talented guy who has such self regard and is so concerned about the way people think about him and the way he's rewarded
And
or
you're not
not
allowed no
rewarded by the.
criticism.
What's that?
And you can't criticize him.
Yeah, you can't criticize him. And for me, the thing about Spike Lee that really was the deal breaker for me was when he was angrily saying that the only reason he didn't get Best Picture or Best Director was because of racism. And I'm thinking, look, even if you do believe that, it still seems uncool to say it out loud. Right?
A
Don't you
little bit.
think? I mean, I
A
remember
little bit.
thinking, damn, man, like
Also,
it.
what was that? Was he mad about what Vim Vendors? Wasn't that when like Wings of Desire? He was like down on Vim
Was
Vendors.
Spike Lee mad about Vim Vendors?
Well, because they both he Vim Vendors beat out Spike Lee on something, and then like he had it like he was giving shit to Vim Vendors, and which is hard to do because like Vim Vendors is pretty great. So
I guess my feeling is like right off the bat, my attitude is who's giving shit to Vim Vendors?
right,
What's up with that?
he
Like the
was.
Vim Vendors is one of our heroes. I
He
like
is.
him a lot more than I like Spike Lee. Put it that way.
I just didn't like this.
Vim
I'll
Vendors.
only say, and also like for example, in the latest movie, it's called Highest and Lowest or something. I don't know. There were all these ridiculouses references to Spike Lee movies. Like it was supposed to be cool or
I don't
funny.
want that.
And the production house A24, they're making tons and tons of stuff.
I
A20,
know that they make horror movies, or am I confused?
they make lots of stuff. They
Maybe I'm
make
thinking of
lots of stuff.
Blumhouse, but
They
I've
made
heard of A24. They're a
they
big deal.
made oh God. The Zone of Interest, by the way.
Oh, okay. I hear that's good.
Dude, must see.
Yeah, I like that author, so I'm
So
interested to
good. The
see.
Zone of Interest was amazing. It's tragic and sad, but unbelievable.
Yeah,
And the sound is incredible. Anyway, A24. So in the
A24 did it.
movie of in the Spike Lee movie, they go up to this apartment door. It's this whole thing, and they're like the police are going to this apartment door, and the apartment door is apartment A24, and it's not a mistake, and it's
Okay,
A
all right.
huge, and it's A in this kind of stylized capture your thing. It's dumb, and I don't. Why do that?
I
Why?
don't like that stuff.
Why would you do that?
There's I'll tell you
And
an example like that. Like, do you remember that movie, My Own Private Idaho?
yes,
Do you remember the scene where Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix are both drinking beers, and one of them holds up the beer and it's Falstaff beer?
yes,
Do you remember the beer company
yeah,
Falstaff?
yeah, yeah.
Well, he holds the beer up, and it's a reference to, of course, the fact that the one, like, it's the story is largely based on Henry the
Uh-huh.
Fourth. I think it's Henry the Fourth with Falstaff. And I just thought, why did you have to be so obvious about it? Don't we all understand already that that's what this is based on? Isn't it obvious?
Yeah,
How
and
does it help to do that? It
it
just seemed.
doesn't. And then Rosie O'Donnell, or not Rosie O'Donnell, Rosie Perez is in this like dumb cameo. There's all
Oh,
these,
in the new Spike Lee film.
huh?
In the Spike Lee film, you mean?
Yeah. And there's a street scene where there's these big street parties because there's this kind of crime going on, and they use the fact that there are these street parties to hide, the criminals are running through it. But Rosie Perez is on stage introducing these, like, why? What is that? It's like, just like this line about him being at the bar. What it did nothing in that
Yeah.
movie.
Okay.
There was tons and tons of stuff in this
Yeah.
Spike Lee movie that did
You
nothing for
didn't
the
need it.
story
Right.
and
Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
distracted you and just left you going even worse because you're sitting in the theater staring at it, going, "What? Like, what am I supposed to pay attention to?" It's
Yeah.
really an extreme example of this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Okay. So
I hate
so
it.
fair enough. That's the connection that he
All right.
kept stuff in where you're thinking, why did he do that? Um, I will briefly say this, and we can get back into Carver. Uh, the Kurosawa movie, High and Low, I assume is the one that the Spike Lee
Yes.
movie is loosely based on. And I
Yeah.
can tell you that Kurosawa movie is a must see. If you haven't seen it, it's truly great.
No, I have it. I got it. I haven't watched it yet because I got it after that.
It's really good, and it's. I think I'm right about this. I believe it's based on a book by Simonon, the Belgian writer. I think he's a Belgian
Um,
writer, and he's truly great. And so that's another discussion for another time. But Simonon was a great writer, and High and Low, I think, was based on a Simonon thriller, and it's a hell of a film. It's one of my favorite Kurosawas. It's not as famous as a lot of it, like the samurai ones are more famous, but High
uh-huh.
and Low is one of his best movies.
All right, I'll watch it. I have it at home.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. Okay, so back into Carver and Lish world. So
Okay.
okay, where are we? What
Well,
was?
I just think it's significant that Max came down the sidewalk, and then in the Lish version, we see the man came down the sidewalk. And for me, again with the name, it's so easy. Also, not only does Carver give you too much information, but by giving the guy a name, all of that mystery and all of the mystery about the guy. If you say, I don't know who this Max is, just because he called him Max, why does that make him safer to me? I don't know, but it does.
It
And
does, yeah. It's one of those
I
things
can
that we just
pile all
feel.
that stuff
We
and go,
just
oh, well,
feel
that's
it.
just Maxness. That's just Max. But if I go the man, I still don't know him and he's behaving in these ways and it's making me nervous or making me unsettled. And I don't have anything to attach to. And
Yeah,
it's critical. And that's a very significant. That was for me when I first read these stories, when you first sent them, when you said, let's do this, that was the most that really leaped out is that Lish took his name away.
yeah. You're right. It's huge. It really it just changes the way you feel about it. And again, that's I think what Lish was all about was
Yeah.
he's trying to get you to feel something, and sometimes you have to take some stuff out to get an effect, and he was all about that. Okay, so where are we now? We're
And then again, then I would, if I could just keep going,
no, sure.
the there's a little bit of a difference about how he walks across the yard. I don't think that's actually, but then he goes, "Hello," he said to the girl, you, because the girl's laying on the bed now, by the way, or sitting at least. "Hello," he said to the girl, "you found the bed. That's good. Hello, the man." And then in the Lish version, "Hello, the man said to the girl, you found the bed. That's good." So again, as we saw with the boy and he early up, remember you saw that when we saw the he when in the Carver version he said he the like the boy he did something, and then in the Lish version it was the boy.
The boy, right?
Again, you see that here where it's he
Yeah.
said to the girl,
The
the
man said to the girl.
so there's
That's a very deliberate
it is
effect.
it is
The man said to the girl. That's an odd, like it's a very, it stands out, like it jumps out at you.
it
It's
does
an
right
odd way to say it.
it does, and the man it keeps him the man but now especially now because you have this you have these the young couple and the man, so the boy and the girl even though they're 20 right like they're right they're but still it's the boy and the girl and the man is the man, and
Yeah, it's huge.
it's
It's a
big,
big
and if
difference.
you say he said to the girl then you lose that chance to
Yeah,
drive that home.
it's more confusing, but it's also just weaker.
Yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
so then hello, it's a good bed. And then, this is significant. So then he goes, and the girl says, "I was just trying out the bed." And she, in both versions, she's just trying out the bed and she patted the bed and says, "It's pretty good." And then in the Carver version, he says, "It's a good bed," Max said. "What do I say next?" He knew he should say
Oh,
something next.
yeah, yeah. I
And
hate
then
that. That
I
seems
hate
really
that.
bad to me.
Well, now again, it just, he's like this weak guy.
Yeah, like
And
the thing where like it's what they call an interior. Like you're getting inside his mind a little bit with that, and when
yeah.
we've agreed we don't want that.
Well, also
You
we
and I at least say we don't
I
want it.
think, but also it just weakens him. It changes his character. At first, like again, it's also inconsistent. In the
Yeah.
beginning of the story in the Carver version, he's jaded. He's drinking the whiskey through the window. He has set up that scene on the front
Hmm.
lawn and all of that. But all of a sudden now he's unsure what happened to
Yeah,
him.
right. It doesn't
Like
make sense. Yeah.
it, but he's more his character is more consistent in the
Uh-huh.
Lish version.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the thing, what is it? That he thought he should say something
Yeah,
like that. What?
he says he it's a good bed, Max said. "What do I say next?" He knew he should say something next.
Yeah. See, that's just totally inconsistent with that character. And
Totally.
all the rest of the story that doesn't fit the rest of it.
In the Lish version, he says in the Lish version, "Hello," the man said to the girl, "You found the bed, that's good." And then he
So
said, "Oh, sorry." Then she says she patted the bed, it's a pretty good bed. And then he says, "It's a good bed," the man said, and put down the sack and took out the beer and whiskey. It's more like he didn't say, "What do I say next?" and "What do
right,
I do?" He
he
decisively sat down, took out the beer and whiskey.
he seemed to know exactly what was supposed to happen next, which is that they're supposed to get fucked up.
And sit
like,
next to the
like
girl.
that's he
And sit
doesn't
next to
wonder
the girl.
about it. In fact, he doesn't seem too concerned about whether anything he says is correct. Like that just doesn't enter into it. He just
No,
talks.
in the Lish version,
Right.
right? No. In the Lish version, he's much more confident. In
Yeah.
not, but again, in this way that I'm trying to convey, which is not always happy, or not always a good thing. Like
Yeah,
he's
right.
confidently
Confident, but
in
in
his
a
unhappy space,
disturbing, depressing
in his
way. He's kind
disturbed,
of
weird place. He's very confident. He's like at
right.
home in that space.
That's right.
It's weird.
It's kind of an unhealthy, arguably what's the word I want? It's a pathological confidence. It's not a
Well,
healthy
yeah, right.
confidence.
Well, as people, it's true in life. People have a comfort zone that can be very unhealthy. And
Yes.
he's in this comfort zone of drinking heavily and being the wise guy, and
Yeah.
but here his marriage fell apart and his shit's on the front
Yeah,
lawn.
no, good point. Like he's not
You
exactly a guy who has his shit together.
right.
He's not, absolutely
So
not that. Like, but it's like a perverse version of a guy having his shit. That's one of the things I love about the story, and I think Lish made this work. He's a guy who's confident and has his shit together, but if you look at it as a disinterested observer, he's fucked up. Like he doesn't have his shit together at all. All his furniture is out on the
oh,
lawn, and
his
he's
partner's
trashed,
gone,
and he's
right? Who
drinking
knows
with a
why?
woman who seems to be like 20 years younger. He's drinking and dancing with a
Right, right.
strange one. Like this is all stuff that most people would point to and say that guy has a problem. But but but, but the way the story is told is like he's the boss of the story. He's on
Yeah,
top
but
of things.
I think the evidence is there for you to know that that's
Exactly.
not the
You put
case.
it together. You don't need it spelled out.
Yeah, you don't. They're not trying to. Lish's message is not that this guy is great.
No, no. I mean, even in 1984, whenever it was, people didn't need it explained to them that a guy getting drunk and hitting on a woman who was 20 wasn't cool. Like he didn't need it explained even then.
Right,
It's
right,
pretty obvious.
right.
And yet nobody has a problem with it, including the boy.
Well,
One
because
of the
he's
things I love about the story that they just nobody seems to think it's weird. They just go along with it. And I think that is maybe what's hinted at the end, which we'll
I
get to. But
guess.
but the fact that she's in retrospect she's saying, what was that all about? But in the moment they just go with it. Again, these are things I love about the story. These are reasons why it's this great story because it's so
Yeah.
strange how they behave, and yet you can kind of see it. With the guy, he's behaving this way in part because of the drinking. But what you're saying is it really isn't literally about the drinking. It's about his way of dealing with what he's
I
going
guess.
through.
Yeah.
The
You know.
drinking maybe exacerbates it, but with the two young people, they don't have such an excuse. Like it doesn't it makes you wonder how do they get sucked in so quickly into this crazy situation and they never question it.
Well, I
Doesn't
think
quite make sense.
well, I think I think it's because they're vulnerable and innocent, you know, and
For
for them
sure,
it's like
right.
a fun game.
No,
You
I agree with you. Like it's sort of
kind of
it's evidence I think that they aren't completely healthy either. It seems to me.
or they're not adults, you know.
They're not adults, right?
They think that that world is fun, but he's on the other side of it where
That's a
he's
good point. It's
rock
fun for
bottom.
them.
His wife left him. His stuff's on the front lawn. They look at that like she's like an adventure. In fact, I think
Yeah.
they say it's an adventure. She even says,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's okay. It's an adventure."
Yeah, good point. So he's sort of I I think that the man is able to see it as fun because of them being there. In other
Yeah.
words,
Yes.
it's all kind
He's
of
maybe
connected,
feeding
like
off
like
them a
like
little
the
bit.
like the strange behavior of the man and of the girl. She kind of enables him to like the scene gets turned into something that wouldn't have never happened if they hadn't pulled over. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a little obvious to say that, but I mean,
Yes.
the point is that them being there, that's what sets in motion this strange turn of events because they show up and they don't question it. And anybody
And
who
they
saw it
followed
and
his
thought
lead.
that's weird and they just kept driving, there would be no story.
Right. Right.
They
Right.
pulled over and they didn't have a problem. They leaned into it,
Right.
and I mean, getting drunk with some strange weirdo on I mean, that's the kind of thing I might have done when I was that age. I certainly wouldn't do it
I
now.
definitely would have done that at that age.
There you go. Some guy offers you a
Age, I
bunch
would
of
have not. I
bonded
would have
whiskey,
gone
you're
the
not
other
going to
direction.
question it. Back then.
Like, no, yeah, no. Then I would have thought, wow, and I would have told everybody, I've told you about it. Hey, I got the guy.
Yeah, no, right. I could see.
Right,
Yeah, right. I could see you telling that story and me
right.
just accepting it.
It was
Of
great.
course. Yeah, that's cool. Met some weird guy. It's great.
But no, now you would immediately go, wait a minute, it's the middle of the afternoon. This guy's hammered.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, now I would be very disturbed, but at the time, well, it's free whiskey. What else do you need to know?
Right, right. And this
Yeah.
fun scene where
It
the
was
band
fun. Yeah.
is on, right?
Yeah. See, this is like we're joking, but the point is that is true of not every young couple would be that, but a lot would, because they've done studies that people don't really learn how to make informed decisions until they're like 25. Do you know about this?
Oh yeah, yeah.
They've studied the brain, like even I've met many smart teenagers who were still very stupid about some things because they just didn't have that part of their brain yet. They're smart about things, but also clueless about other things. This is an aside, but I've found that teenagers are very confused about time. They don't seem to understand that there's a sequence of events, and time is important. They don't seem to get it. My son never seemed to understand that. Anyway, okay, so back into the story. So All right, where are we at now? So now the action's all starting to happen, and I'm looking
Right.
at my version here, and I see a lot of red, which I
Yeah.
guess means a whole bunch of Lish stuff in this section coming up.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm looking around. I'm in this like co-working space, but
Here's the thing that you were talking about: the you kids, you'll want to drink. The man said.
yeah. Well, the one quick little interesting edit above that, I thought, so they pour. We don't have to get,
Yeah.
they pour drinks for each other. The guy said or they. Oh, maybe it's. Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. First of all, they bicker over. They kind of bargain playfully over the cost of the furniture, and but that's not really that. I don't know. Not it doesn't change so much around. I think Lish kind of moves that conversation along in a nice flow. But
Yeah.
then yeah, then he goes. Then he goes. I'm trying to find the.
Oh, well,
Oh right, in the.
here's a point I want to
Go ahead.
mention. Maybe I'm skipping a little bit, but there's water in that spigot over there. The man said.
No, I was getting to that.
That's okay. Sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
Well, because but that's below this. He goes in the Carver version. He says, "You kids want to drink? Want to drink?" Question mark. Max said, and then in the Lish version, "You kids, you'll want to drink."
Yeah, he's
That's
in control in the Lish
everything
version.
we've been talking about
Yeah,
right there.
and then the spigot. That's one of those. That's one of those interesting ones where what is it in the original faucet? Maybe.
There's water in it, so the girl wants. So they decide to pour whiskey. Well, there's a quick thing here in the Carver version. Before that, the boy finds two glasses, and then he goes, "How much of this do you want?" He said to the girl. They were only 20 years old, the boy and girl, a month or so apart. And then in the Lish version,
Yeah, it's gone. Most of
in
that.
the Lish version, they don't even say that. The boy found two glasses and poured whiskey. They don't talk about that they were a month apart. So I just think that's interesting because that's a little it's more that they were only 20 years old, the boy and girl on a month or so apart. That brings them a little bit too close together for me. Then
Yeah,
and I think
agreed.
Lish doesn't want them in that safe space or
I
to
think
be
that's
that
right.
that close. And also, I don't care if they're 20 years old. Clearly, they're kids. It doesn't really make,
Yeah, it doesn't really add to it.
yeah.
We already know they're young. Yeah, and there's a thing. This is a thing that I think you've alluded to a little bit. It feels like at a certain point in the story that the man and the girl have more of a connection than the girl and the boy.
Yeah, well,
Don't you think?
it's coming up. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah, coming up, but yeah.
for sure. And
And
she
and I
doesn't seem to be. She's like, open to it.
well, yeah, it's weird. Like it feels like they're on the brink of something more happening, and then it doesn't happen. But that's
Yeah,
interesting. But again, that's one
keep
of
it
the
up.
things that makes it compelling. You think, oh my God, they like when you're reading it for the first time, it wouldn't shock you if it actually did develop further. Like you
Right.
don't really, in other words, until you've read it already, you don't know, like that part where they're dancing, you don't know what it's going to lead to. I mean, it certainly could have gone further. It could have gone in another direction. It could have gotten really weird and creepy, or could have gotten hostile. I mean,
Well,
there's all kinds of things that could happen.
it got intimate enough, I would say.
No, that's right. The point is it just goes far enough, and then it stops, and so you're always wondering. It's powerful.
Yeah, okay, hang on. I just think it's a quick small thing.
No, go ahead.
When the girl wants water in her whiskey, and the man says, there actually Max says there's water in that faucet over there. Turn on that faucet. Whereas in the Lish version, he goes, there's water in that spigot over there. The man said, turn on that spigot, which is just interesting because a spigot, a faucet is an inside thing, a spigot is an outside thing.
Okay.
So the spigot, it brings you back to draws you back to go, hey, wait, these people are like sitting on the lawn and they're outside
Yeah.
on furniture. So it kind of, brings that back to you just a little bit. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay,
the
I
money
didn't. I
are
did
outside
not pick up on that. I noticed the word difference, but yeah, that's a good observation.
because the spigot is your hose spigot. You don't have a spigot in the kitchen sink.
Right. Right.
Um,
Okay.
so then in the Carver version, the boy added water to the whiskey, his and hers. He cleared his throat before he sat down at the kitchen table too. Then he grinned. Birds darted overhead for insects.
Yeah. See,
Who cares?
I don't want any of that.
I don't want to know. In the Lish version, the boy came back with the watered whiskey. He cleared his throat and sat down at the kitchen table. He grinned. He didn't drink anything from his glass. There's nothing about them being together. It's not both their glasses. It's not they didn't
Mm.
sit down together. He's not grinning. And bird started overhead is a throwaway.
Yeah, what the hell was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think at this point I'm going to occasionally skip past things, and you should stop me if you want to.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So here's something. I thought this was one of the most important Lish moments, and this is. We'll get your version of. We'll hear from you about what how Carver put it, but I seem to recall this was dramatic. There's a part where. Okay, this part's in both. I want the desk, the girl said. How much money is the desk? The man waved his hand at this preposterous question. Name a figure, he said. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, some of this might be different. Because name a
But
figure,
that's the same.
didn't didn't Carver say? I feel like he said it differently. Then,
He said something differently about the checkbook.
so is name a figure in both of them?
Yes.
Okay, so he looked at them as they sat at. So maybe it's something I'm remembering from later. So skip that for now. He looked at them as they sat at the table in the lamplight. Here's where it changes. What do you have there in the original?
So this is important. He looked at them as they sat at the table in the lamplight. There was something about the expression on their faces. For a minute, this expression seemed conspiratorial. Then it became tender. There was no other word for it. The boy touched her hand. And in the
Yeah, I think I know what. Okay, go ahead. Read the Lish version.
Lish version, he said he looked at them as they sat at the table in the lamplight. There was something about their faces. It was nice or it was nasty. There was no telling. Stop.
So much better, I think,
So much better and so much more mysterious, and also
and
so much.
disturbing. It's disturbing, whereas
It's
the other one's just confusing. I
and
don't get
also
it.
know that thing about the conspiratorial. I don't that you
Yeah, I
know
don't want that.
that will also that for me again. I don't know, but for me the message is that how the tenuousness and vulnerability of the relationship that these young people have and anybody might have. But here, just we're almost to the end of the story in the Carver version, and they're still conspiratorial. They're tender. He's touching her hand. It doesn't jive that 2 seconds later she's got her head buried in the guy's shoulder, in the man's shoulder.
No, it doesn't make any
She's
sense at all.
it doesn't. She's still too close to the guy.
Yeah.
Whereas here she's distant enough so that when she runs to the guy with her arms open wide, you get it. I don't know. It's like it's more believable.
Yeah, I think so. And these are the majority, I think, of the things we're saying are either subtle things or things that it took tremendous insight to realize that it should be changed. I think that's generally the story here.
Yeah.
Is that Lish was just really good at this, and in some ways Carver was a novice by comparison.
I think if we're going to think, I think Lish definitely, he said, this is what the story is about to me, in my mind.
Hmm.
And Carver maybe said this is what the story is about and then didn't tell it so well.
Right. We don't exactly know, but it's definitely inferior in some way.
The guy is weaker. The man is weaker.
Mhm.
Also, the couple is the relationship is stronger in Carver's version
Yeah,
and
and all
less
those things.
vulnerable, I would say.
Yeah, all those things seem really wrong now. And again, I mentioned that Carver was cool with this, so he.
Yeah,
Well, my guess is he read this one and thought, "Oh, okay, I like all that. Like it works better." My guess is I guess the book was what, like 17 stories. It's a lot of stories.
it's a lot of stories. I have.
So Carver probably, again, I know you said you weren't going to speculate at all. I'm speculating constantly here, but maybe Carver looking at the manuscript, maybe it was like a triage thing, like a story that basically wasn't destroyed. He maybe moved on quickly to the, like maybe focused mostly on the ones that were appallingly different. And why don't you dance is um, certainly tightened, and he accepted it. So my guess is he didn't have a problem with it probably, or it just seemed okay, and there were things that were bothering him so much more that he let
Yeah,
that one go. I mean, we
I
don't.
do.
It's of course we don't exactly know. So let's see.
So now they're drinking together.
Now they're drinking together.
And then I don't know, like there's this talk about the boy finished his drink in the boy. So in the Lish version or the Carver version, we don't have to read everything,
Yeah.
but in the Carver version, the boy does not get so quickly drunk and separate from the girl. In the Lish version, the boy gets drunk pretty quickly and he sits apart from the girl.
Mm.
And he says, I'm drunk. The girl goes, you're not drunk yet, but he's like, I'm pretty drunk. And he kind of removes himself,
The
not
boy.
to, across the street, but like,
Yeah.
like to the other table.
So him being all of a sudden really drunk makes it easier to accept the rest of the scene
That's right.
because he's not complaining because he's out of it. So that makes sense. It's a logical adjustment.
Right.
Um, and there and then the 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 wording of there's a lot of red here.
Well, that's interesting. The thing about, so and then, okay, so they're drinking. The boy starts getting drunk. He goes, it's right to my head. The man says he wants the girl. Well, okay, hold on. Okay. So in the Carver version, the man says, pick something. He directs her to go pick out a music, pick out a record from the record box.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, pick something you like, and he held the records before her. That's in the Carver version. Uh, in the Lish version, he says the man finished the drink and then he found the box with the records. Pick something, he said to the girl. He held the box towards her. The girl is, I think, more anyway. The girl said picking something, picking anything. She did not know the names of the labels. Um,
Yeah.
it feels though that she's digging. She's jumped in now. She's
Yes, right, right. Yeah.
she's
I think by looking through those records, you could argue she's taken a step in the wrong direction, towards the guy
right, and more
somehow.
willingly. She does it in the Carver version as well, but
Sure.
less. The man kind of directs her to do it in the Carver version.
Yeah.
In the Lish version, he presents the records, but she kind of is a little bit more quick to pick out a record.
Yeah. I think Lish tightened that a little bit. And then you've got let's see. Change the
And then
wording a
he,
little bit. The names on the labels. What does it say in the original? It's not names on the labels. It's something slightly
she
different.
did not know the names of the records, but that was all right. This was an adventure, which I think is interesting that Lish took that
He
out.
took that out. Yeah, see that seems to be the opposite of what we were thinking earlier
It is,
about.
and I don't know, except that it did that is the atmosphere of the kids when they get there in both stories, and
Yeah.
in version when they, as you said, the ing when they're picking up things and picking up
Hmm.
and whatever, turning and tuning, they're like in this adventure.
Yeah. Well,
So
maybe Lish just felt that was already implied and he didn't have to be
yeah, and maybe he,
explicit.
it was too, he wanted better flow. Again,
Yeah.
there's also prose to this. There's also just how the things, you know, flow.
Sure. Sure. So, okay. So now we've got
So there's
uh
a whole big thing though that comes up about, anyway. He goes, so in the Lish, in both ways. Okay, in the it's not so big a change in the Carver version. So now they've put on this music, right? Oh, well, there's a way that the guy is sitting on the couch, but I don't know how critical that is.
okay.
In the Carver version, though, he goes, why don't you kids dance? Max said, that's a good idea. Why don't you dance? And then in the Lish version, he says, why don't you dance? He decided to say, and then he said it, why don't you dance?
Yeah. I actually think
Those
that
are very similar.
that seems the thing of he decided to say and then he said it. That seems to run counter to some things we've been saying, but I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that I like what Lish did there because that does feel like something you do when you're drunk. You decide to say something and then you say it. Like, doesn't that remind you of many nights?
Right, right,
I get it. Like, it slows down time in this stupid way.
right. And also for you, this is a great one I'm about to say. I'm going to put this.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're
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 so
you're
proud of
actually you're impressed with yourself before you even say it.
right, right.
Right, right. That's very much a alcohol thing. Uh, yeah. Okay.
Right, right.
So yeah. So okay. So I want to point out here. that I'm looking at a section now where it's after the thing where he says, "Why don't you dance?" Well, I don't think so. The boy said. So it's interesting. The boy says no to the dancing. I don't want to. Or he just
Yeah,
doesn't. He doesn't say he doesn't want to. He just says, "I don't think so."
right.
But then, go ahead. The man said, "It's my yard. You can dance if you want to." That's in Lish, but maybe not in Carver.
Well, it's
Is it different?
also interestingly in Carver's he goes, "No, I don't think so. You want to dance, Carla?"
Oh, Carla.
So
Okay.
that's where he says her name.
So,
It's
but
not
yeah,
that
but that's
significant.
out in the Lish version. I want to point out something that the whole section from arms about each other, their bodies pressed together, the boy and the girl moved up and down the driveway. They were dancing. So the boy and the girl did dance for a moment.
They did, yeah.
And then,
She was still without her shoes.
so I just want to point out that that whole section, arms about each other, another couple of paragraphs, um, dance with me, the girl said to the boy, and then to the man. And when the man stood up, she came to him with her arms wide open. So there's a sense, right? There's a sense that here a line has been crossed, and I notice that you've got that whole section in yellow, but then you have some lines in red, and I think it it just feels that you're working really hard with the color scheme to try to make sense of. In other words, there's a whole bunch of shit going on here with
Yeah,
Lish
well, I just
changing
knew
it.
it was very significant, and I
Yeah.
just didn't want to not talk about. Now it seems silly because it does stand out, but when I was putting this together, I wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure how this conversation would work, but I wanted to make sure because it's very significant what's happening here. In contrast to the Carver story, which is also significant, arms about each other, they pressed together. The boy and girl moved up and down the driveway. When the record ended, the girl asked Max to dance. She was still without her shoes. But here, when the record was over, they did it again. And when that one ended, the boy said, "I'm drunk." And the girl said, "You're not drunk." So it's just interesting that it feels so the man, like in the Carver version, the girl asks the man to dance, Max to dance. In the Oh, I guess she does in the Lish version, but later.
Yeah, just a few sentences later, she says, "Dance
Yeah,
with me."
so dance
Or
with
no,
me,
she first
girl.
says it to the boy, and then to the man.
The man turned the record over and the boy said, "I am," when he's drunk. "Dance with me," the girl said to the boy and then to the man. And when the man stood up, she came to him with her arms wide open.
Yeah,
So I think
see,
as before, as with the extension cord, Lish changes where that is in the paragraph. I think that's what I was going at.
right,
Because
okay,
she
that's what.
in the Carver version, her way up in the paragraph, she asks the man Max to dance.
Yeah,
And
this
then they
seems
go
more interesting to me. Like it seems like Lish is trying to show that she really was dancing with the boy for not one record but two, but then all of a sudden, inexplicably, he's too drunk, and now she's with the man. Like she switches over to the man like that, and
But
that's
then
interesting.
that's at the end of the paragraph.
At the end of the
That's
paragraph,
the
right?
last. "Dance with me," the girl said to the boy, and then to the man.
Yeah, like
When
you
the
don't.
man
The
stood up,
point
she
is
came
when
to
they
him with her
start
arms wide open. I mean, come on. You don't
this.
have to be Fellini to figure that out,
No, no. And the
as
thing
they say.
is, it's interesting because the name of the story is "Why Don't You Dance." It's not "Why Don't We Dance." The title of the story is the man saying "You kids dance," and so when we read the actual story, that may have been what he originally said, but then there's this moment where it turns, and it seems like it's the girl's idea.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it
Well,
wasn't the man's idea to dance
it's
with
her
her.
idea in both. In both.
In both, okay. So give Carver credit for that then.
Yes, but
Her
she's
idea
a
in
little
both
bit more. With the way he structures it, it hits you harder in the Lish
in the Lish
version,
version, right?
and she's a little more like in the Carver version. Max turned the record over. The girl came up to him. Okay, that's different from
Yeah,
she
it's a
came up
lot
to him with her
weaker.
arms wide
It's
open.
much weaker in this version. You like it's a very different feeling. That is kind of she's with the boy, but then he gets drunk. Like if you want to talk about symbolism, she's with the boy. They dance. He gets drunk. He's taken off the board. All of a sudden, she goes for the man. Like the hell's going on here? In
Yeah.
other words, Lish is making it seem like more dramatic. I think the fact that the fact that she makes that shift and it's not explained. He leads you down this path
Right.
where she's dancing with the boy, and then all of a sudden he cuts that out, which is it's definitely different from the way Carver handled it.
Yeah. And
And
the and
again, a
and that it was
fascinating.
like
Like I would
further
never
down.
have thought to do that. Like he did that. It was an interesting insight.
Who's to say? Maybe after if you really reflected and took time to decide like what your message was and how you're going to hammer it home, like maybe you would. I don't
Well,
know.
fair enough. I mean,
Clearly,
thanks for
their
giving me
own
that credit.
version.
But I mean, the point is, Lish was there, and he
Oh yeah,
figured it out before Carver, and now it's part of history. And that's what the story.
right, right,
That's what the story is now. This
right.
is where, I guess, my feeling is that. Just an aside, because I think I don't know how long my iPad's gonna last. We've been talking for like 18 hours here, but
I know, I've been going for a while. I don't even know how or how you do it.
what's that?
We're close to the end, but I mean, are they normally this long, your conversations?
I've never had a conversation like like this. The first podcast episode was 3 hours long, but it
Oh,
wasn't
well, we're
about
getting close.
literature at all. It was about other stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I mean, it's pretty long. I don't know if it's going to beat the 3 hour mark, but it might. But but the thing is, let's see what I want to say here before we move on. Well, first of all, there's a long section coming up where it's a whole lot of red. So Lish must have.
Yeah.
So that's right around the corner here. I think I think what's going on is that Lish is really leaning into the he's develop he is enhancing the strangeness of it. I think
Yes.
he's making it weirder. It's less weird in the Carver. It's weird enough in Carver, but Lish is making it more weird.
He's also enhancing the vulnerability, I think, of the boy and the girl's
Yes,
connection.
right. I mean, every time I read it, I come up against the same thing, which is that it's weird that she and the man are dancing. It seems odd. It's not impossible, but it definitely is an element that I mean, especially today in 2025, it's an element that might make people raise an eyebrow. You know,
Yeah, I think that they've been drinking, so they're
they've been
inhibited
drinking,
for a
right?
little bit,
I mean,
and
it makes it's not the Wizard of Oz. I mean, it makes sense, but it is weird. I think it's weird by comparison with normal society. It's a little odd. But okay,
mm,
so let's get to this thing that's coming up. Now I'm going to read this because it's almost all red,
okay.
and then you can tell me how it's different from your version. Those people over there, they're watching. Those people over there, they're watching. She said that's in both versions, and then
Mm.
it goes into a whole different thing. It's okay, the man said. It's my place, he said. Let them watch, the girl said. I like that moment because now she's joining the man in his attitude about his asshole neighbors. You notice that?
Yes, yeah,
It's
yeah.
very subtle. He says, "It's okay," the man said. "It's my place," he said. "Let them watch," the girl said. It's pretty significant upping of the ante from dancing to suddenly she's talk about conspiratorial. That's a little bit conspiratorial
And it's
between her
pretty
and the
different
man
from the Carver version.
from compared to the Carver, and the
Yeah.
boy's just gone. Like he's not even
The boy's gone. That's
conscious.
right. The boy's gone.
He's not weighing in on this conversation.
No,
He's
no.
passed out or something. So okay, so there's more. So it says, and I really like this part, and I want to know in a minute once I read this how Carver's is different because this
Oh,
is all really good, and I'm interested to know how much of it Lish came up with. He says, "That's right," the man said. "They thought they'd seen everything over here, but they haven't seen this, have they?" He felt her breath on his neck. Like it's definitely going
dude.
pretty
Totally.
fast into something less innocent here. Like she's it, and we're both old enough now. We've been drunk enough times, I think, and we've been around drunk women, especially drunk young women, enough to know that that it's that I can see like the behavior of that woman seems real to me because I feel like I was at many a party where a young woman was drunk and was just being really stupid and making terrible decisions. And I'm not trying to suggest men don't do that. I'm just saying it was more it was more disturbing when I saw women doing it for the obvious reasons. You didn't, you want to be protective of these women, but she's quick to kind of join that man like in some sort of connection that
Yeah.
so the question is let me wrap up this part and then you
But
can
I'll read you because it's
okay
pretty
he
different
felt
from the Carver
so
version.
he felt her breath on his neck. I hope you like your bed, he said. Again, that's crossing a line in a little bit. And then the girl closed and then opened her eyes. That's very much a drunk thing, I think.
Yeah.
She pushed her face into the man's shoulder. Okay, see, that's where it really goes off the rails. Like, what? That's not. That's a little bit surprising that she does that, I think.
Well, yeah, not if you're not if what I not if the message is that the relationships are
But
vulnerable.
right, I agree with that. That's my point. Is that that's weird enough to suggest your whole thing. It feeds into your whole theory
Yeah.
about the vulnerability. Whereas the point is, it's a red flag. It makes you wonder why she's doing that. It's not just from being drunk. Maybe it's deeper than that. And then it says, "You must be desperate or something," she said. And then there's a paragraph break. And now I'm happy to report that we are just about at the end. So that's good.
Yeah, but
So
it's very
so
significant.
yeah, so
So,
very significant. You must be desperate or something, she said, and then a paragraph break. So why don't you tell me what Carver? How's it different
okay,
than Carver?
so let's read that quickly. It's okay, the man said. It's my. This is the Lish version. It's okay, the man said. It's my place. He said. Let them watch, the girl said. That's right, the man said. They thought they'd seen everything over here, but they haven't seen this, have they? He felt her breath on his neck. I hope you like your bed, he said. The girl closed and then opened her eyes. She pushed her face into the man's shoulder and she pulled the man closer. You must be desperate or something, she said. All right. So then in the Carver version, he goes, it's okay, Max said. It's my driveway. We can dance. They thought they'd seen everything over here, but they haven't seen this. He doesn't say have they. He says they haven't seen this. He's not bringing her in. He's not saying you're part of this.
Okay,
Have they? He
have
goes,
they?
but
Yeah,
they have
have they is sort of like a friendly. It's
have
like
they?
we're
You're in on
together
the
on
joke.
this. We're a
That's
team.
right. And then
Right.
and then he goes, in a minute, he felt her warm breath on his neck and he said, I hope you like your bed. I will, the girl said. And then he says, I hope the both of you do, Max said, which is wrong.
That's wrong. Yeah, yeah, right. It's better without that. Yeah,
It's way better. And it doesn't,
yeah,
okay, so okay, Carver, what are you saying? So is the guy want the
yeah,
girl or he doesn't want the girl?
yeah. Right. We don't
The-
look. It's vague in
yeah,
Carver sometimes.
so
Yeah,
the I hope the both of you do is right out. And
yeah. It's
then
just
anyway, the
weak.
girl
It
says,
weakens it.
And then because you had mentioned, Carl, that the boy seems to have disappeared, but in the Carver version, Jack, the girl said, wake up. Jack had his chin propped and was watching them sleepily. Jack, the
Yeah,
girl said. She closed and opened her eyes. She pushed her face into Max's shoulder. She pulled him closer. Jack, the girl murmured, while her head's in the guy's shoulder.
yeah. What the
She
yeah?
looked at the
Lish
bed.
wouldn't have that. He
She looked at the bed and could not understand what it was doing in the yard. She looked over Max's shoulder at the sky. She held herself to Max. She was filled with an unbearable happiness, which is a beautiful sentence, but doesn't
yes,
I
we
don't get
agree.
it. And I kind of like that she was filled with unbearable happiness feels like a Lish line, but maybe a line that Lish would leave out because it's too
Because
obvious or
too
something.
exactly. It's too obvious. Yeah.
But it's more in keeping with Lish's
Mhm.
goal or whatever, a message that she's now, because the boy, as you mentioned, the boy's nowhere in that paragraph in the Lish version. He's all
No,
over the Carver
he's
version.
all over the Carver version. Right, right.
You
In
know,
the Lish version, it's like he might as well have gotten on a flight.
he's out,
He's gone.
right? He's with the
He's
other,
left town. Like
he's
he,
with, he's with the wife.
right. And then and interestingly, yeah, he's with the wife. Interestingly, there's a paragraph break there in Lish, and the boy never comes back in the scene. Like once he's gone, he doesn't come back. So I'm looking at it now and realizing, I mean, I
Oh,
don't think that anything happens there, but you don't really know. Like conceivably, somebody could interpret it and say, well, maybe the boy passed out and the woman and the man did it on the bed. Like it's
yeah,
not out of the question. I mean, it could have happened. He doesn't. It's vague. Or I shouldn't say vague because I'm criticizing that, but it's mysterious because
mysterious.
it doesn't like it cuts. It's like you must be desperate or something. She said. That's the end of the scene. That's a
Yeah,
weird way to. Given what's going on up until that point, it's possible that something it goes further. We don't really know. I'm not saying I think that, but the point is he leaves it open to that interpretation. I think.
he certainly, I don't know that even like it at this point it doesn't kind of matter. The point is that they could the message that or whatever, the vulnerability, the tenuousness of their relationship, that the boy is easily potentially forgotten is all there, and it's enough. You
Yeah,
don't.
that's right.
You know,
It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't really matter if it goes further. The point is, it could.
it
That,
could.
that, I think that's the significant thing. Like we get there and think, I didn't expect it to get here,
Right.
and then he doesn't explain it. He just cuts. And I think what he's saying is, hey, you didn't really see this coming, and now that it's here, I'm not going to explain it.
Right.
Or that's Lish saying that. I mean,
Yeah.
Carver kind of hedged his bets a little bit.
Big time, because the guy is all over that paragraph. The boy and
Mm,
Jack, she's saying his name, murmuring his name as her face is pushed into the man's shoulder
yeah,
or Max's shoulder. You know,
it's essentially
it's a
much
mixed
more.
message.
Hmm?
It's a
What?
mixed message.
Mixed message, yeah. It's essentially much more sinister and much more suggestive in Lish.
Yeah, and much more in keeping with, again, which it's much more in line with that how vulnerable these relationships can be, and certainly at that age, but now, but actually at any age, because we started out with the guy broke up with his wife, so I think it's all about that. You know, that for me, that stories are about the vulnerability of relationships or
Yeah,
other things.
I think you're right about that. Now I want to jump in. I think because we're at the end, I still have enough battery life that I can make several points before we go.
Okay.
We still have to look at the last paragraph, but I want to save that for a second. Um, it's important. Well, maybe it's not important, but it seems important to me to mention that Gordon Lish, and this was not true of Carver, to my knowledge, but it was definitely true of Gordon Lish. That Gordon Lish was a guy who was often trying to get women who were not his wife to sleep with him. And if that
Oh,
was a woman,
wait, can you say that Lish was doing that?
Lish, yes, Lish was
Oh yeah.
Lish got laid all the time. Now I'm not arguing that I'm impressed by that. I'm just it's just a fact. Everybody who knew him said he was always hitting on every woman, and he slept with a lot of his students. I don't know if a lot, but he there is some. I've seen some scuttlebutt to the effect that he did sleep with some of his students, and I guess the reason I mention this is because the whole thing of the older man and the girl is way more
Oh.
explicit in Lish than it was in Carver, and I mean it's a little
Oh.
bit there in Carver, but Carver softens it so much that it makes you wonder maybe Lish was just more interested in that theme.
Maybe Lish was like a Woody Allen guy.
Well, wouldn't have put it that way. I mean, first of all, let's not talk too much about Woody Allen. It's
It,
always dangerous. But in my
it is.
opinion, Woody Allen is largely innocent of what he's been accused of. But I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know
not
that
going there.
nobody wants to hear me say that. So let's just say this. In the case of Lish, he was basically a guy who hit on women, whether they were younger than him or not younger than him. It didn't seem to be so much of an issue for him. He just liked to get laid, I guess, and people can argue about what they think about that, but I just think it's significant that it could be part of the reason why he seems to have steered the story more in that direction than it was already there in Carver. I think that's true. Um, okay, so now we've got the end where most of it is the same in both. There's a whole bunch of lines that Lish did not edit. So weeks later, she said, the guy was about middle aged, all his things right there in his yard. No lie. We got real pissed and danced. In the driveway. Oh my God, don't laugh. He played us these records. Look at this record player. The old guy give it to us. That's interesting. Is that the same in your version?
It is, and
Give
I
it
guess
to
that's the
us?
purpose. I don't know. I thought that was a typo. It
It
isn't mine.
it's either a typo or it's just an attempt to show that she's speaking in some sort of a
Teenage.
lowbrow
Yeah, yeah.
dialect, which I don't recall from anywhere else in the story. But
No.
at any rate, um, I'm not sure how important that is. But the old guy gave it to us, and all these crappy records. Will you look at this shit? She kept talking. She told everyone. Now here's where it changes.
Mhm.
There was more to it, and she was trying to get it talked out. After a time, she quit trying. Please tell me how it's different in the Carver because it is
Um,
different. I think.
in the Carver version, there's a few things different, but in particular, that last line, she kept talking. She told everyone there was more. She knew that, but she couldn't get into it, the words. After a time, she quit talking about it.
Yeah. See, I guess
So it's close.
my feeling about that is that it's a good try, and Lish just made it better. He didn't
Yeah, he tightened it up.
fundamentally change it. He just made it better.
He tightened it up.
Tighten it up, right?
But interestingly, in the above that, in the Carver version, um, we got drunk, we danced in the driveway. She kind of describes the scene a little bit more verbosely, like, too much. But then she goes, Jack was hungover and had to rent a trailer in the
Mm.
morning to move all the guy stuff. Once I woke up, he
Once
was,
I woke up, that's new information. We didn't know
yes,
that she
once I
fell
woke up,
asleep.
he was covering us with a blanket. The guy was, this blanket.
Yeah, see, I mean, for me that's I don't want to belabor this, but that's another point for the idea that maybe something more happened. Except that he seems that's Carver, so Carver seems to be
Yeah, but
saying,
again, I think that that's like it's off the track. Like, so Carver, now the guy is, again, he's weaker. He's trying, like, those kids are still together. He's
yeah,
covering them with a blanket.
yeah, it's
Yes,
more.
it could go. I mean, it's just a story. Maybe he is a sentimental guy. He's,
It,
you know,
it's definitely more sentimental that he covered them with a blanket. That's a
yeah,
lot
and then
different
gave them the
from
blanket.
that's a lot different from the image of the borderline perv where we're not exactly sure what's going on. Like the covering with the blanket is pretty different from the
Yeah,
Lish
and
version.
like I say, the boy is still in it. The boy
He's
is
still in it.
the boy. The boy. Well, he is. We got real pit in the Lish
Yeah,
version.
we got that's
Yeah,
one thing. She's talking
he's
about
there.
we.
You know,
Well, I guess that's in okay. Well, that's in both of them. That part.
he is, but he's the boy is more strongly all over the end of the Carver story.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like Carver. Like the point is they're both passed out in the same bed in the Lish version. They're not in the same bed at the end of the scene. They're
Right.
they're they're it's the boy's somewhere else. Like that's the point. Like that's a pretty big difference, I think.
Yeah, in the Carver version, in the Lish version, there's there nobody's in the bed in the end. I mean, maybe they are, but the boy certainly isn't.
Yeah, the business of covering them with a blanket wouldn't make sense in the Lish version
Yeah,
because but that's the point. Like he just looked at that and said, no, can't have that. Take it out.
yeah,
At that point, he's right at the end. He'd already taken out a whole bunch. Like he
yeah.
had to take that out. I think it didn't make sense. Like it was just obvious to take that out at that point. So okay, so we're at the end. I have one thing that I recall I wanted to say about something that a podcaster said, and I think we can pretty much wrap it up after this.
Okay, yeah, I
Um,
gotta get something to eat.
yeah, yeah. So let me say this: um, for anyone who's crazy enough to still be watching this, we are interested. John and I are interested in doing more of these. We may do some more Carver Lish ones, depending on I mean, how we feel later. We may look at some and say, we kind of already did that. We'll see. But I'm interested in doing. I like the idea of doing more of these. We'll see. Maybe when we do another one, it won't be as long because a lot of the same stuff will happen. We'll find out. That's to be determined. But I also want to do more of these with other authors, and I'm hoping this will be a thing that we'll get to do a lot. So let me say this one thing that I think is funny, and maybe this will be the end of it. For this time, I was listening to a podcast where they had it was one of there are a lot of these podcasts where there will be a bunch of people that I would like. To me, it's a heavy hitter. If somebody who writes for the New York Times or writes for the New Yorker, to me, those people have arrived. But in their world, some of them may be just like 30, and maybe they may not be really that much arrived. They're pretty. Like I never heard any of these podcasts with some guy as old as us talking about this stuff. They always have these young people who probably are more excited to be on a podcast, I'm guessing. So, at any rate, here's what I'm getting at with this. They had three people on this one podcast talking about the same subject we're talking about here. The difference being they didn't do this story. They talked about some
Hmm.
other stories. But it was the same subject, and they talked for a first of all, they all basically agreed that Lish made the stuff better. Nobody was willing to argue that Carver was wrong. They everybody accepted that Lish had improved the stories, but sometimes it was a grudging acceptance because you could tell they were troubled by the fact that Carver had to accept it or had it foisted on him or something. And an interesting thing
Oh,
happened, I thought, when they talked about this. they mostly talked about the stories and the kind of thing we've been talking about. But when they got into the thing about whether it was ethical for Lish to do it or not, it was interesting to me that the person who wanted to talk about the most made the point, and then it just sort of sat there because it wasn't like he raped someone. Like the point is, it wasn't quite extreme enough for people to be throwing a fit about it, the outrageousness of Lish. It was they agreed that his stuff improved the stories. So what it came down to was it's like they felt obligated to point out that Lish was a little bit unethical by doing it, and then there was nowhere to go with that theme. There was nothing else to say, and I read this, I heard this rather, and thought maybe this is the way a lot of these things are going to start going, where we all acknowledge that some guy was bad in some way, like he was a misogynist or whatever, and we kind of mention that, and then we get back to talking about the reading and the writing. Like that, in other words, maybe I'm reading into this, but I felt like that's what was going on there. Was they were saying, they weren't saying you shouldn't read this because Gordon Lish was a sleazeball or whatever. They're just saying, well, I'm troubled by this, and then they just left it. There was nothing else. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
they said this, but then there was nowhere to go with it. It's like the kind of like you felt like it was perfunctory that they were pointing it out because they really
well,
mostly talked about the art.
yes, it's a very interesting point that came. There's a thing I listened to a while ago. I've been trying to remember it so that I could tell you about it. But anyway, first of all, I'll say this. I was glad that I came at these stories without any looking back at who was who and
Yeah,
what the relationship was or anything, or whether Carver was happy with this or that. I look at this edit and this edit,
yeah,
and I thought this was the better. I thought this was the
yeah.
better. And
You
in
were
fact,
you were
I went
objective,
back
more or
and
less
forth.
objective about
I went back and forth over the course of the week, but after this discussion tonight, I'm firmly believe it really we did a good in-depth and like I get even more things like kind of gelled for me after this
it. Yeah,
conversation,
I think so.
where definitely the Lish version, I feel like, given the that it's not a novel, you have this 3 pages, this is the message, and he did a better job with it. So that's it. So whether or not Carver, somebody was unethical or whatever, I don't know. And I don't and as you I think we're saying, what is the limits of that? Like, why? It's really hard to say. Like when you talk about Woody Allen, like I don't know. We're maybe a little bit. I think the guys. I don't want to get into the whole thing, but there's definitely some people who feel very strongly that But so then, does that mean really Annie Hall isn't a great movie? It's really hard.
Right.
It's
I
very
mean,
hard.
let's. Okay. I didn't want to talk about Woody, but since we're talking about him, let me say this. Um, I think what you're saying. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Woody Allen did do some fucked up stuff that we don't want to talk about right now. Let's just say that happened. Does that mean you can't watch Annie Hall anymore? Does it
It's
mean it's less great? I don't think so.
I don't
I
think it
saw it
does.
again.
I'm
What?
not saying the guy's great. I don't think it does.
I don't think so. I mean, I saw Annie Hall a year or two ago, and I remember thinking, man, it's even better than I remember
Still
because I'd
watch Annie Hall.
forgotten.
I still watch Hannah and her sisters. I
Yeah,
still
that's
watch.
also great. I'd forgotten the whole. In my opinion, now many people watching this would just say this is just more evidence of what a perv and sleazeball he was. But you remember the scene? It's not even a scene. It's a long section of the movie where they have those little kids talking about. You remember
Yeah.
he goes back. It's like a flashback when he's in school, and then he has those little kids saying stuff that little kids would not say. Like I remember that this one little kid says something like "I'm into leather" or I can't remember exactly. And the
Right,
thing is,
right.
I mean, some people would watch that and say, "See, that just proves how much of a
Oh, no,
pedophile he was," and I think it
no.
suggests the opposite, which is that he just thought it was so ludicrous that it was hilarious that she was
Yeah, it
it
was
was saying
hilarious.
that. That's my
And
interpretation of
take
it.
the money and run. Come on,
Um,
it's
yeah,
hysterical.
I mean, yeah,
Very hard. But
we
I'm
gotta
not.
be we
I
gotta be
don't.
careful, but getting too let's
I
not
know.
get too far into it because
I
I
know. But no,
understand
my
a
only
lot of
point was, but
yeah,
like it is similar in that for me coming out these stories, it was good for me to just this is the Carver this version. I don't
sure,
know who Carver is. I mean, like I know who
yeah,
he is, but I don't know the guy, and I don't know their relationship or anything. But just on the
right,
merits of the stories, which is what I thought I could bring to it, because I'm not an expert in this. This is what how I felt about the stories on the
My
written page.
my feeling is, look, neither you nor I are trained in this subject. We have some training in other areas, I guess, but we didn't get literature degrees. We're just people who like to read, and I write a lot, but that
It,
doesn't mean, I mean, the point is all the things we're saying here we're saying because we were enjoying the story and fascinated with it and thought about it a lot and had emotional reactions.
yeah,
Everything I guess part of the point of this podcast, I think, is I want to believe a lot of people will watch this and realize, oh, I don't know it. I don't have an MFA. I don't have any special knowledge about reading and writing, but I get what these guys are saying. To me, all these things are just kind of obvious. Like they don't seem like you have to be an expert on fiction to see these things. And I don't think Lish felt that the audience needed or the reader needed to be an expert. I think his whole point was I want to get that person to feel something.
yeah.
And everything we're saying here is
And I want to
well
do a
within the
good job making
grasp
sure
of the
they feel
layperson.
something.
What's that?
I want to do a good job making sure that they feel something. I want to
Yeah,
make it, I want to kind of make sure that they feel this thing that I have envisioned. And whereas Carver is a sloppy job of it.
yeah, I think that's right. And so okay, so let me say that this will be the last thing we can close on this because I thought this was funny. I don't know if you'll think it's as funny as I did, but I thought it was funny. Um, on the podcast I was talking about, at one point, one of the women who was a critic writing, I can't remember who it was. It's better if I don't say who it was anyway. But someone who was a professional critic was one of the people on the podcast, and she said, "I just want to cut in here and say that Lish is just an extraordinary, uh, very gifted editor of dialogue and exposition. Like I guess she'd probably criticized him or so, and felt the need to say that. And the funny thing about that was I heard that and thought, okay, so what you're saying is Gordon Lish was a great editor of dialogue and exposition. What else is there that an editor aren't isn't that pretty much the whole job? Like
Well, I don't
dialogue and exposition. What else is there?
know.
He's he's think about this. A Raymond Carver story, what you remember about Raymond Carver is the great dialogue generally, and the great storytelling choices. In other
Uh-huh.
words, what Lish was good at is everything that's important, in my opinion, about Raymond Carver. But in other words, it feels it. I wish that I had that woman here so I could say, what are the things that Gordon Lish isn't good at editing? Like it kind of feels like you just said he's great at editing. Like maybe I'm overstating this, but she
Oh,
like the fact that she made it clear that he was specifically good about this and that, and I'm thinking, what was he bad at? Is there anything else that he's
yeah.
not good at? I mean, it was just weird the way she put it. I think she was
Yeah.
trying to basically say that he was really great because they all were agreeing he
Uh,
just masterful what he did, and they weren't even talking about this story; they were talking about other ones.
I guess you can't. I don't know. People don't always put their sentences together exactly right, I guess. You know.
Fair enough. Well, I would like to. This is a fantasy, of course, but I would like to know what Gordon Lish would have said about that sentence.
Well,
He probably would have had some smart ass.
he might have said
I'm not doing a good job of representing him here. He would have been
he
wittier
might
and
have said like in the Seven Samurai, when remember in the Seven Samurai when the samurais are always running up to Toshiro Mifune and they have like this great idea and they're like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and Mifune just goes more. What does he say? Like
oh,
more
okay.
lunacy, like
I
more idiocy.
I apologize for being pedantic here, but you are talking not about Seven Samurai.
What is
Because
it?
in Seven Samurai, Mifune was kind
Oh,
of a young goofball.
sorry. What am I talking
You
about? The
mean
other one.
Sanjuro, where
But
where where he's the wizened
he's the
old guy.
wise guy.
Yeah,
He's
the
the
wise guy.
wise,
Yeah, he's
like
the wise
but
character,
like the
and
wise,
yeah,
samurai,
and the
and there's the young
dumbass
guy.
young guy. For anyone who doesn't know Kurosawa, he's great, and this is the Kurosawa movie that no one ever seems to talk about. They always talk about for good reason, Seven Samurai, and then some people who are a little bit hipper will talk about Yojimbo because that's
Uh-huh.
also great. But Sanjuro is kind of neglected, and and it's actually funnier than the others,
It's
and
hysterical.
it's hysterically funny.
It's
Even
hysterical.
it's not a comedy exactly, but it does have a lot of humor in it.
But
And
where they
here's the thing you're talking about, because I've been quoting this for years in other contexts. And I remember watching it with you years ago, and we both loved it.
I
Where
think we watched it in your parents'
yeah,
basement.
probably so. Yeah, we watched it in my parents' basement, like so many other films we watched, and they come to him and they tell him something, and then he says, "More idiocy."
But they're super excited about it.
Yeah,
This
they're
is our
super excited, right?
oh
But
my
he
God,
just
we
looks
got it.
at him and he says, "More idiocy."
Right.
I love that. I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways, that's the perfect.
So
I
that's
don't
what
want to get into politics here, but that's the perfect sentence for our times. More idiocy.
right.
You
Well,
just keep. You wake
but,
up, you get out of bed, and there's more idiocy every day that you
but the
can't
funniest
believe.
what's funny is how gung ho they are, and they're like, we
Yes.
got it. He's gonna love this idea.
Yeah. No. Right. They're excited to tell him because they think he's gonna congratulate them for
Right.
being so smart. That's what's great about it. Yeah.
They
Yeah. They
scurry.
run to him to tell him.
So that's what Lish would say, right? Lish would go like, he would listen to this whole conversation and go,
Yes, Lish is very much like Toshiro Mifudi's character
right,
in Sunshine. He's like the smart guy that all the chowderheads are coming to, and he's just going, "No,
right.
more
You're not getting
idiocy
it.
is so
You're
great."
not getting
Not you're not getting it right.
it.
Exactly. Okay, listen. Let's get out of here quick. John
Okay.
Martone, my guest
My pleasure.
and my friend, and thank you so much for doing this. I knew this was going to be good, but I'm very pleased at how it turned out. So it was fun, and I think we did something really interesting here, and I hope it was
I
a
got a
little.
lot out of it, and I got even more out of the story, after going over it with you, which is why I guess people, have book clubs, I guess, or
Yes,
go over things together.
except as long as we're talking about that, I'm not convinced.
Oh no.
Okay, let's trash the book club trend briefly, and that'll get a lot of views. I think
Right,
everybody
that'll make people
will
happy.
love that. I'm not sure everybody has book clubs to do what we're doing here. I think a lot of it. I think sangria enters into it a lot.
No, maybe. I've never been to a book club. Claire has one. She has a couple.
Well, I was supposed to be in a book club, and it kept getting canceled week after week, and eventually I realized
That's
I'm
not
not in a book
unusual.
club. the person this is an in joke for the person who if she watches this, she will recognize herself mocked slightly in this story, but I don't have to mention names. But yes, book clubs. I mean, I've talked to people who are in book clubs. I'm trying to think, do I have a book club story that I could. They're always someone else's story because I'm not in a book club. So can I tell these stories without them getting mad? That maybe not. I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm
maybe I tell you what.
tempted.
Maybe
I'm
we
very
should save that for
what?
another time. Maybe we should save that for another time.
The book club thing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Um,
Yeah,
and
well, what I'm worried about is, like, for example, if I tell a story that either my wife or my mother-in-law told me about book clubs they're in, I think they would get mad at me, and
so,
rightly. I think they didn't say, "Hey, here's a story for your podcast." Did not say that. I don't think they would have thought, "Oh, sure, put it on the podcast, no problem." I don't think that's yeah. So let's not do that. I'm just going. I'm tantalizingly hinting around about it, but saying nothing. I think I have plausible deniability here, maybe. But yeah. So next time we get together, maybe we'll do another one of these Lish Carver things, or maybe that's too mean. I should call it the Carver Lish thing. Or maybe we'll look at another thing. We got a lot of options, and all I can say is it's going to be fun and interesting next time. This has been another episode of Tangent Town, which is not always about writing, but it was today, and I suspect we're going to come back and do more of these. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Great talking to you, Carl. Great to see you. I'm so glad to have some time with you.
It was a pleasure. So we'll do more of this. I will catch up with you later in the real world. And thank you everybody for listening. And we will be back soon with more of this. Thank you. See ya.